Hello everyone, this is Kelly Beatty coming to you live from the Chelmsford Senior Center for the second night of our fall annual town meeting. The fall session is always marked by lots of sort of housekeeping kinds of articles because the budget for the fiscal year was passed back in April and we're cruising on that. But there was plenty to talk about on the town meeting warrant. Those of you here last Monday know that we got quite a bit accomplished through the warrant articles. Among them was a passage of collective bargaining agreements for our police patrol officers, library personnel, highway and public works personnel. That passed overwhelmingly. Also, there was a transfer of about $400,000 in free cash to the sewer construction fund and a transfer of $565,000 for 4 sewer projects. Always important given that we have now townwide sewer. But what is coming up tonight, despite the fact that there are only about 9 articles left, could easily take up the whole night and maybe spill over into next Monday. That's because included in the 9 articles left to tackle are Article 32, which is a bylaw to ban the use of single-use plastic bags here in town. And I've already seen a couple of people outside soliciting support for that. There's somebody here dressed head to toe in plastic bags. I'm not making this up. I'm sure you'll see her. And then following that is the real heavy-duty article, Article 22, which will address 15 properties along Route 40 in North Chelmsford that have been, it's been proposed that those be converted from the zone RC to 1A. The R is important, that means residential. The I is important, that means industrial. This is part of a longer argument, a longer discussion that the town has been having over what to do with the Route 40 corridor on the way to Groton and whether that should be developed or not. I just got photobombed. So it proposes to be an interesting night. Those 2 articles alone are going to take up a lot of the time. There are a series of zoning bylaw amendments that will follow that if time permits. We're bound by sort of agreements to end by 11 o'clock one way or the other, so you might see some posturing depending on how long those first 2 warrant articles take. So we won't know for a couple of hours yet how the evening has gone. I'm sure we're in for some spirited debate tonight. We hope you stay with us and enjoy the show. So we'll stand down for the time being. Moderator John Curlin will bring the meeting to order in just a moment.
Well, can't you? Yeah, just use that moving post. Jesus Christ. Good evening, everyone. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just so that everyone knows what we're going to be doing this evening, we're going to be starting with Article 32, then we're going to go back to Article 24, then we're going to go back to Article 22, 23, 25 through 29. Before we embark, it has come to my attention that we have 2 individuals who wish to speak at town meeting. They are Chelmsford High School students. They are involved with the ecology club or whatever, and I'm sorry, I don't know the technical name. ECO is what I was told, and they actually are residents of Lowell. So we need to vote to allow these students to talk to us at town meeting. Their names are Michelle Lee and Serena Pam, and they both are Lowell residents. So at this point, I'd like just a show of hands. All in favor of allowing these students to speak at town meeting? All opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, we will now start with Article 32. Oh, yeah, thank you. We do need to determine there's a quorum, so please check your voting devices. I saw it earlier, and I just wasn't paying attention.
So determining a quorum is a whole lot easier now than it has been in years past. You see the screens there in front of you. Each of the 168 town meeting reps has a remote control device that registers their presence and their vote on the tally board. It makes votes a lot quicker, especially on close ones. You might recall in years past, it was not uncommon to have hand tallies of votes, and that is still done from time to time, though it hasn't been needed in quite a few town meetings.
So for the record, we do have a quorum, and now we will commence with Article 32. Will the presenter please take the microphone?
It's fine.
It's all yours.
Okay. John, do we have the slides we sent in?
Okay, I would ask Ted, slide deck, did you separate it into the master?
There's a clicker right on top of the podium there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Cunningham, and I am the current chair of the Chelmsford Recycling Committee. And tonight, I'm going to go ahead and present to you Article 32, which is the restriction on the retail use of single-use plastic bags. So instead of reading the bylaw, I'm going to, which we can all read, I'm going to hopefully get to our slides. So the purpose of the warrant article that we're presenting to you tonight is to reduce the use of thin film plastic bags in the town, to promote the use of the reusable bags that we presented tonight to those that came in, and to show our town's commitments to the health and well-being, our environment, and our economy and our responsibility as being part of a green community. Just some highlights to give you an idea of where we're at. It's estimated that we have 35,000 people in town right now, and at an average use of 307 bags a year, that's over 10 million plastic bags used in town alone. So what would a yes vote do tonight? A yes vote would establish a bylaw that would eliminate the use of these bags, but I want to be very clear what it doesn't do. It does not eliminate the use of those bags that you put your meat in, that you put your fish in, your deli products, your produce, your dry cleaning bags, your bags that your newspapers come in. Very clear. I know there was some confusion about that in the past. So just to give you an idea of where the state and other towns are at, right now 122 of the 350 towns in Massachusetts are currently under some sort of restriction. That is the bulk of the population. More than 50% of the people in Massachusetts currently live with a bag restriction in their town. All of the surrounding communities, Billerica, Lowell, Burlington, Concord, even Boston, enacted a ban. There are 200 Market Basket, Hannafords, and Stop and Shops in the state, and more than 50% of those currently do not offer single-use thin film plastic bags. So there are some common concerns that are often brought up. The weight of overpacked bags. The solution to this is fairly simple. You just ask that your bag be packed lighter. In fact, my experience is a lot of people a lot of the baggers are already asking people how heavy or light they want their bags packed. The other item was the cost of reusable bags. In most cases, you can pick up a reusable bag for anywhere from 10 cents to $2, and the Recycling Committee's been very fortunate to be able to acquire state grants that allow us to provide the reusable bags that you guys receive tonight. And we'll be giving them out at the farmers markets to anybody that asks, and we've given a bunch to the food pantry. We will continue to seek that funding, and we'll continue to share those bags with the residents of Chelmsford. So the other concern that comes up quite often is the contamination issue, and there's often this study that's cited from 2007 by Click and Write that said people in San Francisco were getting sicker after the bag restriction went into effect. But the reality is there's been a lot of study to refute that, and both Click and Write are law professors. They're not the people that actually study these sicknesses, and the data that they studied was fairly flawed. The facts are, just like anything else, your reusable bag should be wiped down and washed. And you need to make use of those plastic bags that are provided for your meat and your fish and your fresh veggies, because they will prevent your bags from getting unnecessarily dirty. So the other thing that you see is that these bags, everybody's seen them blowing around town. They get into the storm drains. They create litter in town. These are all costly items, negative images of the town that we don't really want. And then I think people do try to do the right thing. They see the recycling symbol on the bag and they put it in their recycling. Unfortunately, the way single-stream recycling works, these bags are clogging up the recycling system, which in turn causes a costly shutdown of the plant. It's hundreds of dollars an hour when they have to shut that plant down. If that happens too often, then eventually our rates are going to go up. So there is an ultimate cost by having these things get out into the environment or get into the wrong stream and not be properly recycled. So there's a lot of talk, and you've seen a lot of pictures about the impact that plastics and plastic bags are having on our oceans, rivers, lakes, and streams. And the reality is that there's estimated now, there's a lot of studies that have been done, particularly by the EPA, where 80% of the trash in the ocean starts on land. About 20% of it comes from the shipping and cruise and fishing industries. The problem with the bags is once they enter the waterways, they're thin, so they break down, but they never go away. And when they break down into the microplastics, we can't see them. We think, oh, the problem is gone. But the reality is the plastic is still there. It doesn't go away. So the summary that I have for you tonight is that reality is these bags are impacting the environment. They're impacting our health. They're costing us dollars in unfavorable ways. And there's a lot of towns around us, and there's a lot of neighborhoods across the country and across the world that have eliminated the use of these bags for reusable bags. You have the ability tonight with your yes vote to make a positive impact on this community and for the generations to come. So I appreciate the opportunity to present to you. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee, a majority of the Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 32 with a vote of 6-1.
And does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation?
The Board of Selectmen voted unanimously to recommend approval of Article 32.
Now's an opportunity for questions or discussion. So anyone who wishes to speak?
David Rand, Precinct 2, and I have a question. Chelmsford, last year I was here, I asked the town manager if we were jamming up the recycling with our plastic bags, and he said no. Has that changed?
So the answer is yes, on occasion. I don't have the facts and figures for you. Certainly be willing to go get them from our recycler, but yes, it's very common, or it is common for plastic bags to get into that single stream recycling and jam up the system. Now, they're not going to say, we picked this particular bag up in Chelmsford and you caused it. There's no way
Well,
to get that data.
we don't have that problem because we don't have robots like Lowell and the other towns that are gone to the eliminating the bag. We have people that actually will throw it back in your lawn if there's a plastic bag in the recycling.
Okay, I can't debate that because I don't have the facts on that.
And I also got an email from somebody that said they asked the DPW.
Are you now in discussion, or you still have more questions?
I have a question. He says it's plugging up the storm drains. I
Well-
wonder where he got his information because I got an email saying that it doesn't.
Well, I believe he answered that question, but perhaps there can be clarification.
Is there somebody from the DPW can confirm what you said?
I can tell you some anecdotal evidence. That picture right there I took on my morning walk just a month ago. So I do see this where people just,
Yeah.
they're trying to do the right thing, but they just got
Well,
the
that
bag in there.
recycling bin up there
Right, that's the Chelmsford
on my
bin.
street
Yes.
ends right back up on your lawn. And I've got arthritis in my back, and I don't appreciate those cloth bags because I've had them overloaded on them.
Okay, so you're now in discussion?
Yes, I'm finished because they can't give us any straight answers here. I guess Mr. Cohen is not available. What? Yeah, so, all right. Anyways, I have arthritis. I go pick up the groceries, and I use that bag, and then when I get done with my eating my food, I take bones and stuff like that, and I put them in that bag, and I put it in the trash. But I don't use all of them, and those go back to the store, and they make nice products out of them. They make mats and stuff. And,
Pardon me, sir. Did you identify yourself?
yes, I certainly did.
Okay, I didn't recall.
So I just don't get it where Chelmsford doesn't have a problem. The DPW doesn't say that, it says that their storm drains are fine. They're not being plugged up by plastic bags. And like I said, what I can see on my street, we have a manual system here. We don't have robots, so there's no need to ban the bags. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Kowalski, Precinct 1. Do you have an example of a single-use bag?
Do I have an example of the
Do you
bag?
I'm sorry. I thought you said that Market Basket, Hannaford, and all those bags would be exempt. Did you not say that? Did I misunderstand?
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. I
Okay.
said Market Basket offers a 10-cent bag you can buy.
Okay. So, but you have other bags that are exempt, the
Yes, so
deli
anything,
bags or...
anything that you
But
put-
why the exemption?
because you want to put your meat into a bag just like you do today. You package your meat up into that single-use bag, and then you package it up into a second single-use bag.
But they're both single-use bags.
So we're asking the town to vote on the reduction of the single-use bags that you carry the groceries in and not the bags that you put your meat in to protect from contamination.
So those don't cause any harm?
Those
Those little bags right there, the ones you say they're exempt.
They do, but we're asking I think what the ask here is that we can eliminate one of the harms.
Okay. So I know that in towns that have eliminated the plastic bags, they sell other bags, 10 cents, 15 cents. Where does that money go? Who collects that money?
The people that sell the bags, to the best of my knowledge, I don't have.
It's not
data on
going to
what-
any, it's a
what
for-profit?
Market Basket. It's Market Basket is making.
It's a
the choice
for-profit
to-
company that does that? I just want to know. Okay. So if you forget your bag, you have to buy another bag or bring your cloth bag. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Craig Robertson. I do the sound mixing for town meeting, and I've now put this rug here. It's so that when you stand at the microphone, you face the podium and moderator, and it would just make my life a lot easier if when you come to the microphone, you could do so. Thank you.
My name is Jocelyn Demuth. I live at 11 Field Street and steal a line from a man I met today. I'm going to do a little trash talk. I'll be brief. I am the spirit of single-use plastic bags past. Once I held a box of toothpaste before tossed in the trash, or thrown in the recycling where I ruined a bin of things that would have been recycled before I was tossed in. Every day of me, there's more and more, thousands per day taken home from the store. I can never die, but will simply increase. I am in your water, your soil, and the food that you eat. Let's fill our world with plastic bag debris until I am you and you are me. Bwahaha.
Thank you. Probably the most poetic discussion we've had in town meeting.
Good evening. We're from the Ecology Club at Chelmsford High School, and we'd like to thank the Select Board for allowing us to speak tonight.
And please identify yourself.
My name is Jenna Ward, and I live on Highgate Road.
Thank you.
Today, single-use plastic bags represent one of the many challenges we face when working to build a more sustainable future. Many people are opposed to the idea of a plastic bag restriction. However, when considering this topic, we should ask ourselves, if we cannot take that first small step to protect our friends, our families, ourselves, our Earth, what can we do, or what chance do we have for living in a better tomorrow? Plastic pollution is a universal problem, and one that has been building up for decades. Plastic pollution is a problem that applies to all of us. Right now, the average American uses 300 to 700 plastic bags a year, and over 10 million plastic bags are used each minute around the world.
Thank you.
My name is Dreama Utek, and I live on 3 Taylor Lane off of Robin Hill Road. I'm a part of the Ecology Club at the Chelmsford High School. As of 2017, our town boasted a population of approximately 35,100 people. Doing simple math, if each individual in Chelmsford uses an average of 307 single-use plastic bags each year, it means this after just 1 year, there will be over 10 million plastic bags in total accumulated in Chelmsford alone. These bags are adding up in exorbitant numbers, and each individual bag does a significant amount of damage and harm to the environment. However, there is still time. The environment is still able to recover from this plastic pollution, but this will only happen if we put in the effort. We understand that this effort starts with small steps, and it's through small steps like limiting the use of plastic bags here in Chelmsford that we can have a positive impact on the environment, all while reducing our reliance on single-use plastic bags.
Thank you.
I am Michelle Lee, and I'm also part of the Chelmsford High School Ecology Club, Pawtucket Boulevard in Lowell. Thank you. Currently, our Ecology Club is focused on bringing change to our high school community. For the last 2 to 3 years, we led a school-wide marker recycling project and have helped organize a town-wide cleanup. While the amount of litter wasn't a major problem just yet, we still picked up a concerning amount. But we need to think bigger. We need to end plastic pollution at its root, production. Restricting plastic bag use here in Chelmsford will help do our part alongside other towns, states, and countries to reduce plastic waste. In fact, most of the plastic you recycle will never get reused and will instead end up clogging landfills, and that's just another reason why this restriction is so important. I mean, think about what this means for single-use plastic bags. Most recycling facilities don't even have the capacity to recycle plastic bags. Single-use plastic bags can take 500 to 1,000 years to deteriorate, and it can take even longer when these plastic bags are stuck in landfills. Even then, plastic is only broken down into smaller microplastics. It doesn't actually disappear from the environment.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Serena Pan, and I live on Princeton Boulevard in Lowell. I'm a part of the Ecology Club at the high school. In addition, plastic bags come at a high cost to the environment, and the effects of this are already showing. As plastic bags are very lightweight, they tend to blow away easily. This causes many bags to end up caught in trees, on the ground, and maybe even in animal stomachs or around their necks. Nearly 100 million marine animals are killed each year due to plastic pollution, and as of 2019, there is an estimated 100 million tons of plastic debris floating in our ocean. If our plastic use only continues to increase, who knows how much damage our ecosystems can withstand before collapsing. But it doesn't have to be that way. We are urging you to use a greener alternative, recyclable bags. You can use it, you can carry it around, you can use it, you can show it off to your friends. Did I mention you can use it? We handed out some of these before the meeting tonight, and we hope that you will put them to good use. Not only do reusable bags reduce our reliance on plastic grocery bags, but they are also a more sustainable alternative that will make a big difference. As the youth of Chelmsford, we are asking you to please support the single-use plastic bag restriction. We are asking you to make change, to give us, the next generation, a chance to live in a more sustainable future. Because after all, we only have one world, one Earth, and it's a beautiful one. But if we don't take any action to protect it, who will?
Thank you.
Badri Upaliappan, Precinct 5. A couple of questions, but I feel nervous after listening to all of this. I don't think I can speak so eloquent. Do you know what happens to the plastic bags that get recycled at Market Basket in Chelmsford or at Hannaford's if they take it? Do you know what happens afterwards?
So I haven't spoken to Market Basket on what they do with those bags, but the theory is they get recycled and made into other products.
Okay. What other alternatives have you considered instead of the a pure play plastic ban, and why did you reject them?
So the only other real option out there, other than not having anything at all, would be to have stores charge for the bags. But that was looked at the last time this came up in front of the town, and we don't have the ability, or we're not allowed to charge or mandate businesses charge for bags.
Okay, so that's a Massachusetts limitation in some ways of us being able to charge. Okay. Was a wider survey conducted with the community to understand what some of the preferences and challenges are? Are these the limitations, or are these the concerns that have come up from the survey, or do you have some data that you might have collected that you can throw some light on?
So I want to be clear. The recycling committee didn't do a citizen survey. We reviewed the concerns from last year and all of the comments and tried to make sure that we addressed those this year. I did go out and try to approach several businesses to get the business impact, because that was a concern that came up. And at every turn, businesses were unwilling to share their opinion or the impact of it, and more often than not, we were told either no comment or to call the corporate offices, which did not get us anywhere. So,
okay, I'll reserve some more questions for another time after others. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. Julia Novak-Caldwell, Precinct 8. I'm also a professor of sustainability at a local college, and I wanted to bring back to the discussion the very valid points that our presenter and our incredible high school students have made about the persistence of microplastics in both water and in soil. So I think what we're missing here is the fundamental disconnect between plastic bag use, environmental impacts, and your own health. Plastic microparticles carry a lot of chemical toxins and are consumed by small animals, whether those be land-based or marine-based or freshwater-based. A single plastic pellet can absorb chemical pollutants up to 1 million times the concentration found in seawater. These particles are then eaten by fish and other marine organisms near the bottom of the food chain, and then other organisms eat them, and then it bioaccumulates in their tissue, right? So then when we eat the fish or other organisms that have ingested those plastic particles, we in fact are ingesting all of those toxins. So there is a direct connection to the use of plastic bags and your own personal health. And yes, it is just one step, but it's one very important step that we have the ability to take to make a difference, both in our environment and for our own health. So thank you very much for your
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn Thorne, Precinct 5. I support, and probably some of you in the audience support as well, the group called 4Ocean, that is going to take the plastic out of the ocean. They spend a lot of time and their own equipment to do such. I think that's a very important thing to do. So to put things in the appropriate perspective, I think we have two conversations going on here. One is plastics and one is thin plastic bags. So could you give me the latest statistics on the amount of plastic waste thin plastic bags make out of the total plastic waste that occurs in this country?
So I cannot answer the question on what the percentage of the plastic bags are. I don't have the data in front of me.
Well, the reason why I ask that is because we have people up here saying how dangerous plastics are and how troubling it is for our health, but there's no perspective. Now, if I told you that the thin plastic bags are a fraction of 1% of the amount of plastic waste in the country, that would put a little different perspective on trying to ban those versus plastic containers, plastic covers on coffee cups, plastic anything, if it is a very, very small one. Wouldn't that make a difference?
Well, I think to answer the question, let's go with, because I don't have the facts in front of me or where the data is coming from, but if you're saying it's a fraction of a percent, it's still a fraction percent of tons and tons. It's still a problem. Just because the percentage is small doesn't mean it's not a problem.
I also heard a comment about it takes, millions of gallons of oil to make these plastic bags. And I understand that most of these thin plastic bags are not made with oil. Do you agree?
Okay, Mr. Thorne, your questions are argumentative. Wouldn't you agree? Isn't this true? Just ask a question that's not an argument.
What are thin plastic bags made from?
So I understand where your question is coming from, and they're made from a product called, ultimately a product that starts as ethylene, which is often made in this country. In other countries, it's from oil, but in this country, is made from natural gas. However, that does not make these things safer because they're a byproduct of natural gas. I mean, because that's the linkage that people try to draw.
So the last question I have is, because this is going to be a significant change in the lifestyle and use of these bags for the people in the town and in this audience, would it be important to survey the town, the residents of the town, people to get an idea of what Chelmsford residents in general think about removing plastic bags from their environment and their lifestyle?
So first of all, I think we're starting to see the impacts on lifestyle around us as all these towns have restricted the use of these. Second of all, I'd love to ask each and every person what their opinion is, but they elect you as the town meeting reps to make these decisions for us.
Yeah, so as a follow-up to my question, you bring it to this audience, but you have not talked to the town.
I have not done a town-wide survey.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to clear up, Ed Buckley, Precinct 6. I'd like to clear up a couple of questions in regards to the storm drains and what's happening with some of the storm drains in town. On my street, on Buckman Drive, the stormwater division's in the process of replacing roughly 300 feet of storm drain. And I was talking to Dennis Greenwood, and those guys are doing a great job, by the way. And I was talking to Dennis. They set the camera down with the robot, and they GPS the whole line. They're not finding white bags. They're finding the small blue bags that the dog walkers are using, and they're putting them down the drain. They're not white, they're blue, and they're full of dog waste. And, you know, we voted against this last year, and it's one thing I found out in this town is when someone loses on this floor, they like to come back like zombies and the spirit of Halloween. But I think this is all a moot point because the state's in the process of banning the bags statewide, you know, as we speak. So I just want to let people know that, and that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Ryan Latina, Precinct 4. I brought my plastic bags. There's 35 of them. We use every single one of them to put diapers in. Very efficient, good use of it, really clean. It's just like meat and all the other things. You don't want to get it on you. As I was walking out the door, now we have paper bags. You can see how hard it is to get a hold of them. And there's only 4 here, and they got a handle, and they're made in the USA. This one is made in China, and it's recycled products. This was by my front door sitting on the ground, and I'd hate to see this in front of me in a grocery store having not been washed and bleached and as clean as those bags, single use, because I don't know where that bottom has been besides on the floor in my house, in the back of my car and other places. So if we don't bleach these every time, I have a suspicion that there's probably a lot of dirt on the bottom when they put it in front of you in the grocery store. I went to California and Chicago where they banned all these things, San Francisco in particular, and they don't give you bags. You have to buy them. They're about 20 cents, 30, 40 cents, and they're really thick. They're about 30% thicker from what I've read, the plastic kind of things, if you don't bring one of these. If we start this process at a Chelmsford level, it bothers me a bit to see it filling up the ocean because Chelmsford bags don't. Chelmsford bags are not in the ocean. Chelmsford bags are probably either incinerated or they should be left by the curb if they're in the recycling bucket. You heard one of our folks say that the recycling that we do, if there's one of these with your plastic stuff in the recycling thing, the company that does this, Mr. Manager, should stop and walk away. Leave the can there. I'll bet you they'll know not to put these in next time. We could even slap a little sticker on it because it's manual. So let's educate the population. Let's not legislate at a town level in Chelmsford these. And I'll leave you with a little education point. Our largest manufacturer in Chelmsford, in our overlay district, Mr. Manager and town meeting members, employs 350 people making high-end disposable products. They don't make plastic bags, but they make the forks and things that you do at the 4th of July. They make the little plastic containers that you get your food in when you don't eat it all at the steakhouse. They were going to spend $5 million in the 129 district last year. And we took out 2 products that they sell, plastic containers and the plastic straws. That's what they manufacture, 350 people. Up to 650 employees in Chelmsford make these. Leominster, just down the road here, Plastic City, USA, 1920. They started making plastic. They saved a lot of lives during World War II making plastic in our state. We should be very proud of plastic. University of Lowell, I heard some kids from Lowell here. University of Lowell has one of the finest plastics training college in the world. People come from all over the world to go to University of Lowell to learn about plastics. They're working on this. The company in Chelmsford, their associate company, built 2 manufacturing plants, not in our town, unfortunately, but in Wisconsin, to recycle these things and make other products out of them. They probably ship them overseas so they can make them in China. But if you don't like something, don't destroy 350 jobs. Help them decide how to do it. So order paper when you're at the store. I'm going to pick plastic because I have diapers at home.
1 minute, Mr. Latina.
We should be able to make decisions as Americans and as Chelmsford people with an education. And the kids coming in love it. We did ecology back when I was in college, in high school in California, and we did the same kind of thing. It was different stuff. We're worried about mercury in the ocean. Now we're worried about nanoplastics because somebody invented that concept last year or the year before. I walked on the beach for an hour and a half this summer, and I had to bring my own bag to pick up the trash. Most of it was rubber bands for lobster claws, little plastic ropes that came off boats, and they had nice little plant growth on them. They actually were supporting some life there. So I'm going to vote no because I can do this myself at the grocery store. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Pease, 23 Hitchin Post Road. I am against the article because it places adverse burdens on the town's citizens and businesses, restricts our personal freedoms, increases the already large number of regulations we are subject to, and is totally unnecessary because it will have no effect on the alleged problems it is purported to solve. We are told that plastic checkout bags lead to pervasive litter, but that is just not true. Look around town. You will find an almost complete absence of littered plastic checkout bags. They are just not a problem. They are not blowing around our streets, and they are not in our trees. We are a clean community with responsible citizens, and we don't need a ban because we take care of these bags properly. Perhaps a few bags were found in the town-wide cleanup, but so were hundreds of pounds of other materials. Should we ban everything that was found? We are told that we need a ban because the waste management recycling facility is burdened by our discarded bags. Again, this is just not correct. Waste management has praised Chelmsford for having one of the lowest levels of reject materials in our recycling stream of all the towns they service, well below standards. We just don't put plastic bags in our recyclables. The presenter showed slides of plastic bags clogging conveyor belts, but those bags are not from Chelmsford. We are not a problem to the recycling facility, and therefore a ban will have no positive effect on its operations. Plastic checkout bags are supposed to clog storm drains. I've seen storm drains clogged with leaves, but never a plastic bag. And when I see a clogged drain, I clean it off. No big deal. Last year, I asked the recycling coordinator whether it was a real problem and was told that the only issue was with a few people leaving bags containing pet wastes. A ban will not stop this problem because these few people will simply continue to do so using alternative bags. We are told that plastic bags impact rivers and the oceans, but this is all irrelevant because there is no credible pathway for bags from Chelmsford to reach the ocean, given our good track record in managing them properly. Moreover, online searches do not reveal a plastic checkout bag problem in the Merrimack River. The real problems with the river are needles, plastic discs from wastewater treatment plants, and plastic bottles. We're told that the bags are derived from petroleum, but that's a plus since the bags after use and reuse are sent to a waste-to-energy facility where they're cleanly burned to generate badly needed electricity. And finally, we're told that 122 other communities have banned plastic checkout bags. This is the argument that we should do something because everybody else is doing it, an argument we should rightly reject. A product ban in Chelmsford should be evaluated on its merits here. It is irrelevant what other communities do. A ban on plastic bags will cause retailers to change over to paper bags, an inferior product that is bulkier, 7 times heavier, and weaker than plastic bags. This will burden town businesses, including 5 of our largest, 3 supermarkets, Kohl's and Walmart, costing them and us more money. The increased costs arise because the relative weakness of the bags mean more will be used. Their bulkiness means more valuable floor area will be required for storage, and their bulkiness and weight means more truck shipments will be required to meet the needs of the stores.
1 minute, sir.
These increased shipments will also cause higher fuel usage and diesel emissions, as verified by life cycle analysis studies. Businesses do not switch from plastic to paper checkout bags voluntarily, only when they are forced to do so. We should not be so focused on helping the out-of-town waste management facility maintain its profitability to the detriment of our important in-town stores. I appreciate plastic checkout bags because I grew up in the era of paper bags, which routinely ripped and spilled their contents. Plastic bags are strong and can carry loads of goods, and they have handles, which allow more of them to be carried and with far greater ease than paper bags. A benefit to those persons who walk to stores, persons who many times are of lower economic standing than those who drive. Plastic checkout bags have been proven to have
Sir, your time has expired.
May I one more paragraph, please?
I think the people got the point. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think they know what how you're going to vote on this.
All right.
Thank you.
Nancy Arroway, Precinct 1. One of the things I heard is that these plastic bags are clogging up the ocean or making it out to the ocean. And it struck me really interesting because well into this century, New York City was still dumping all their trash into the ocean. And a lot of Asia still is, which is why they're trying to clean up the Pacific Ocean. That aside, I appreciate the effort of the recycling committee to try to get these bags out of our recycling stream. There's a lot of volume to them. But I'm concerned that the argument that's being made is that it's better for the environment. And I'm concerned about that because when you look at the carbon loading, the impact on global warming from these bags versus the other options, they're actually the lowest contributor to global warming of all of the options that are available. So yes, they create a bulk in our recycling stream, but they are the least hazard to our environment in terms of overall carbon emissions. For one plastic bag, you would have to use a paper bag 3 times to have the same carbon emissions. When's the last time you could use a paper bag 3 times? They collapse on me. One of these guys, you have to be able to use it 4 times. One of the non-woven bags that were up here, 11 times. And the production costs to the environment of those cotton bags, 131 times what the lightweight plastic bags are. I think we have to look at the overall impact to our environment, not just the cost to our town for recycling. I think we also have to look at the cost to our citizens to change their habits. An awful lot of our population is aging. And I don't know about you guys, but I can only carry one of those paper bags because I have to do it with both hands. My mom can't carry it because she has to hang on to the stairs when she goes up them. She cannot go up the stairs with a paper bag. So every other option that's available besides that paper bag comes at an expense. These bags, they're 10 cents each. Where do they go? Well, they go back into recycling, and they create a whole lot more bulk there than the lightweight ones do. The cotton bags, yeah, you can use those over and over, but you have to put them through the laundry. And now you've got an additional load on town resources from all the water that's used, the detergents that are going into our sewage system, and an expense to the people that are doing it because of those extra loads of laundry that have to be done. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Cynthia Feekers. I live in Precinct 7. I'm a registered nurse by profession. I am a United States Air Force veteran. Last year, I joined the recycling committee in Chelmsford. I have a personal passion for the ocean. I have personal reasons for that. And I am in awe every day at nature, that we see the sun, that we follow the moon, and that we have air to breathe and water to drink. And I need my glasses for this part. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, as most of you have, my mother taught me to use only what I needed, and too much of anything wasn't good for me. Too much sunshine burns your skin, dries the soil so the plants don't grow, the roots don't survive. Too much water causes flooding, plants drowned, roots drowned, water seeps into our basements. Too much wind, trees are down, power lines down, we lose electricity. Too many calories, well, we all know where that leads to. But we need all of those things, but we need them in moderation. We don't need 10 million single-use plastic bags each year in our town of Chelmsford. Plastic wasn't as pervasive when I was growing up. My mom always cleaned and reused everything, and we weren't poor. The growth of plastic productions after World War II in the past 65 years or so has substantially outpaced any other manufactured material. As a society, we have become so dependent on plastic. Plastic, it never leaves the earth. Plastic, it finds our way into our food. Plastic, it's everywhere, and it has a purpose. I don't think we should eliminate plastic, but we have to look at it because it's taken off. Slowing the production of plastic and making opportunities for our younger generation to be innovative, to create jobs, to find alternatives to plastic. That is what our responsibility is, to find an alternative to something that works. Plastic works. There's just too much of it. Children learn what they live. Adults learn what they live. And people learn in different ways. But a majority of people learn by tactile learning. We touch, we feel, we experience. We learn by doing. And we need to teach and learn by example. Bag bans help to educate people by example. Bottom line is, folks, we make too much plastic and we can't recycle ourselves out of it. There is an EPA statistic that says we recycle about 5% of our plastic bags. I personally, and I think you can all attest, that you've never seen one of those recycle bins at Market Basket overflowing. So people just generally don't do it, and I only have a minute and a half left, and I don't want to, too much talking, that's another problem. We have to use less plastic, and the first to go should be non-essential plastics, like bags. That's the key here. We need to get rid of things that are non-essential, things that we can trade off and use other things from. We don't want you to switch to paper. We don't want you to have to carry those bags that rip. We want you to change to reusable bags. I've been using reusable bags for 2 years and I'm not dead yet. Some of you have already transitioned to reusable bags. Some of you may start tonight, and some of you won't do it until you have to, which is actually the least desirable way to learn. In July 2019, when this warrant goes into effect, says ample time for us to plan for that, and I will participate in that planning for you. You have my commitment. It's time to invest and test new ways to deliver products and don't rely on plastic. Be the town that creates opportunities for your children. Vote yes because you care. Be the vote that makes a difference. I urge you to vote unanimously and to pass this warrant. It's time to stop deciding if there's a problem and start working on resolving it.
Thank you.
Hi. Excuse me. I'm Chase Bowles. I live at 34 Old Stage Road. I'm a senior at Chelmsford High School, so yeah. I was inspired to come here by the same teacher that recommended the Eco Club come here. Have you ever put a plastic bag over your head on purpose? Probably not. Maybe when you were little. You probably learned from multiple trial and error experiences that putting a plastic bag over your head is bad. It can suffocate you. Your parents probably told you not to. Now, we all love animals. We love the bear sightings on Chelmsford News, right? We love the animals. What about the wild animals? We have no way of communicating that crucial detail. How are they supposed to know not to put their heads in plastic bags if we can't tell them that they shouldn't? For the sake of our local wildlife, it is vital that we ban them. In addition to wildlife, they contain poisonous compounds that, when eaten by animals, leach into our nutrition and our food chains and build up in our systems. Restricting bag use would overall keep us healthier in the long run. We in Chelmsford are better than keeping unhealthy and unsafe bags around. A yes vote is a vote towards our society's health and towards our society's future. I also want to bring to attention the idea of polling members of the community on what they want. I would like to bring up how truly unrepresentative that sample would be. It would ostensibly only interview people over the age of 18. Now, I'm 17 years old. I'm under the age of 18. And I know some of the Ecology Club members are also way younger than myself and spoke much more eloquently than I could ever. Remember that this is our town too, and that we have a stake in our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Hayes. I live on Crooked Spring Road in Chelmsford. This is a discussion, not questions. I sent a memo to all the precinct reps. I'm not going to rehash that, except one point, that Chelmsford now, in any supermarket, you got great options. You can bring your own bag. You can get a paper bag or a plastic bag or buy a bag to reuse. So all those are available now. You can recycle your plastic bags there. Plenty of options for people, plenty of environmentally sound options exist today. The bans on plastic grocery bags are definitely on the increase in Massachusetts. Something like 120 towns have some restriction. That means 240 towns do not. Okay, fine. What I find interesting, it's like the yin-yang of the world. At the same time that there are more bans, there's increasingly studies being done by environmental organizations, by universities, and they show in life cycle impact assessments, they show that what happens with the plastic ban is not what you think. There's a big world of difference between how you think is going to be a result of banning plastic bags and what happens in the real world. So in many studies, it turns out that when you do these plastic bans, you see an increase in heavier plastic bag sales. You see a huge increase in paper bag sales. Both of those are way worse for the environment. And most of that is the manufacturing of these materials. So that's really what happens. And you can think that everyone's going to get your reusable bag. Most people will not. If there's still a free bag, most customers are going to go for the free bag. So right now, if you go to Lowe's, you go to Home Goods in Lowell, or Home Goods in Westford, or CVS or Lowe's, and this is what they put your stuff in. Much, much heavier bags that have a recycle symbol on them, but in fact, they can't be put in your blue bin either. So these need to be done separately, recycled separately, and not put in the recycle bins. And as one of the recycling committee chairs mentioned, now we can use these. We'll be able to use these once the ban is in place for protecting our reusable bags from fish and from meat juices and stuff. So I'm looking at all this plastic, like all this other heavier plastic we can use, and I'm wondering, how can you expect me to believe this will be a reduction in plastic? I don't think it is. And that's not what we see in studies that have done across the country. So I think it's wishful thinking, and that's not what we're going to see. And I would love to see cities track it. track the volume of waste, track the recyclables, track the bags that are sold, and tell us if this thing's going to work or not. So that's really missing. I guess the only other thing I would say is regarding the microplastics, which is kind of a very important thing, and people are finding out more about microplastics. Microplastics are formed from any kind of plastic, including synthetic materials, including your fleece jacket or vest, or your yoga pants, or your bag made out of polypropylene. Every time we wash these things, you're having microfibers go into the water. So the thing with environmental impacts is it's not easy to be green. And I would ask you to let me decide, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about these things. I like to decide what I want to do to have the least environmental impact. And you should let everyone have that choice.
Thank you.
Debbie Derry, Precinct 6 Rep. I don't want to repeat anything that's already been said before. So where I will come from is the bags that were passed out this evening, do they go into the pink bags that we have for clothing, or do they go in the trash?
Could you?
But they will break down sooner or later.
Could you?
I want to know what we do with them when we're through using them.
Do with what? Just to be.
The reusable bags.
Once they're done. When those rip, you dispose of them properly.
And how is that?
I would put mine in the trash.
So it goes in the trash, not in the pink bag.
No.
Well, I'm asking you because there was a film I saw recently in regards to, it wasn't the plastics, it was the cloth that was being, that was thrown in the trash, and how they get caught in the belts. And that's why I'm asking. So these bags, you're saying to me, go just in the regular trash.
They would go into the regular trash and be incinerated with the rest of Chelmsford trash.
And they won't plug up the belts.
I haven't been up to see the operation, so I can't answer that question.
Well, if part of them is cloth and it's got handles on them, I would assume that it would.
I don't want to assume something I don't have knowledge on.
Okay. My other point is this. I come home from going to Market Basket, that's where I go. I replace all my small trash cans every week with them, which go in the trash. If I cut an onion or I'm dealing with chicken, it goes in that bag and goes in the trash until my trash is picked up. But there's something that I learned, it was during the grinder pump study, is there was a gentleman that was on the board, actually, of the grinder pumps, and he spoke at one of the meetings. And during the holiday at the time, they had a visitor to their home. And the visitor had a baby. And the wipes were thrown into the toilet. And this gentleman said he had to put a sign above his toilet now.
Okay, Ms. Derry, we're really talking about plastic bags.
No, but you didn't let me get to the point. The point is over 30% of this town, over 65 or over, we have the babies that use diapers. We have the elderly who use diapers, and they also use wipes. Now, when you have the wipes and you have the diapers, does that mean you go out and buy plastic bags for them? That was my point, because this gentleman, that cost him hundreds of dollars because of his grinder pump, the wipes got stuck in the system, which destroyed the grinder pump. That's my point. So those plastic bags are being used by many people for many different uses. I will also say, if you ever saw anybody with a staph infection, there are medical waste. And that means that medical waste has to be disposed of. It cannot just be put in the trash. It's got to be covered up and secured so the bacteria will not form. I do not believe, very briefly, that the parents in this town that have children are taking their reusable bags and washing them. And that's when you run into problems with salmonella poisoning, because those thin plastic bags also break, and then you have it in the bags. So I will vote no on this issue because I use mine constantly. I live on a main street. I pick up beer bottles, and I pick up Dunkin' Donut containers, napkins, cigarette butts. When I see it, I go in the house and get one of these bags, and I pick it up and dispose of it. So all you're saying to me is that's just going to be another cost that I will have to go out and purchase plastic bags for my weekly use. So I think it will be an added cost to the average taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Lowe. I live at 38 Hall Road, Chelmsford. I'm personally a high school student, and as an environmental science student, I know, obviously it's been reiterated, but the plastic from these bags are ending up, even if they are in landfills, in our soil, and even if, regardless if they're from Chelmsford or not, they're ending up in our oceans, which is coming back to us in the forms of our food. Unfortunately, we are all still unaware of our future health risks when it comes to the consumption of microplastics. I just wanted to say that any change we make here tonight makes an impact, regardless of how small. My generation has grown up with the pressure and the pressing issue of pollution, and we are all extremely concerned. I know that Westford has implicated this change, and they are a very successful example. We can be another example, and you all tonight are directly impacting my generation's future. The youth really want action. Reduced demand of plastic creates reduced production, and it also begins the creation of alternatives. Please vote yes and take a step towards a sustainable future and helping my generation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emma Stover, 12 Gallup Drive. I am a senior at Chelmsford High School this year in the AP Environmental Science class like Maria and Chase. And I'm going to keep my message brief. I think the Eco Club and many other people here today gave a lot of good scientific background about this problem, so I'm going to keep my message pretty brief. But the upcoming generation cares, and they care a lot. More and more young adults are gaining the right to vote, and they're voting green. College campuses around the country, especially near us in Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, are turning to carbon-neutral campuses. Businesses near us are adapting to sustainable practices. The people care, and so should we. Massachusetts as a state has been a leader since the beginning. The Revolutionary War started here, we all learned that in history class, and recently we were the first state to ban vaping products due to their harmful effects. But plastic bags also have harmful effects that we know about, so why not ban them? They're harmful to us and to wildlife. There have been complaints about paper bags, but banning plastic bags does not make this wrong. Reusable bags are a great option, and they're not very hard to wash. I own several canvas bags myself, and I love them dearly. Towns across the state are taking part in bag bans. Let's not let Chelmsford fall behind. Let's not be on the wrong side of this issue. Yes, it is a small step. Yes, there are a lot of different types of plastic waste, but taking the first step for the future here will lead to a brighter future overall. We have the opportunity to take this step. Even if it is just a fraction of what humans pollute, we have the opportunity to take this step in the environmental fight, and opportunities like this should not be taken for granted. We can't wait any longer. The youth can't wait any longer. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Badri Upalipan, Precinct 5, 5 Gerridge Lane. You missed out the clock, Mr. Moderator. Thank you. I can't speak as eloquently. I need to probably go to high school under Tom's tutelage there. But I believe change is difficult, and I'm sure change is very difficult for all of us. Convenience is very easy. It gives us freedoms, and it comes with responsibilities. Plastic bags were introduced, if my internet research goes correctly, is about 40 years old and probably originated in the Americas. Somewhere here, probably, because we are a great nation with a lot of technological innovation and solutions to come with
for challenges. This, in my mind, for all of you people who may have watched or maybe heard about it live, Apollo 13. I've only watched the movie. I didn't live at that time, so I only watched the movie. When Jim Lovell was coming down and they didn't know how to get him back home, there was a secondary pilot that was not able to make it on his journey, had to improvise on the fly and get Apollo 13 back, the landing module back onto Earth's surface. I believe this is sort of a similar situation. We are at the cusp of having to transform our economy, our innovation industries, and giving the future of our children to have them, to have something to work towards. Yes, it is difficult. There are 101 problems today with what I can do and cannot do with my plastic bag. But you have to give them an opportunity to work with us and change our way of lifestyle. People come and say, oh, there is X, Y, Z of the contrary aspect that happens. 1970s or late 75s, whatever, the oil shock happened, we all bought small cars. What did we do now? We go to SUVs. We're burning up the oil as if it's no tomorrow. We don't care about it. Chelmsford motto is, let the children guard what the sires have won, or something paraphrased, so to speak. And I should not say any more sires because that means men, and we can't do that. So let the forefathers win, protect. But really, what are they going to protect if we don't let them have anything? So let's really look at changing. It's a personal choice. Somebody said it's a personal choice. I can do that. Yes, you can do that. Do that. This is just going to start that movement. This is going to start that revolution, as a previous speaker said that. This is what we need to invest. Please unanimously send a message across the board. This article is not about banning the plastic bag itself. It is the title, the first title that everybody's missing, to add section 144 or whatever that is, bylaw, for making a sustainable community. This is about being a sustainable community, and the first step. Yes, we can do green. As a town, we are a green community. That was done about 10 years ago. We have started the movement. Let's make progress one step at a time. To run a race, you have to start with one step forward. You can't be standing and saying, I will wait to see what the end begins. Give me all the solutions. Let the perfect not be the enemy of the good. Start the movement now, guys. Please do not waste any more time of this town by harping on, oh, I can do this or that because I have convenience. Let us work together. If we are a community of responsible people, let us bring up the challenges to these high school kids if they want to, and ask them for a solution. Let that be the innovation that they take to UMass Lowell, UMass Amherst, WPI, whatever it is. There are enough data. This is not about data. Data is going to have you on both sides. You've got to do this from the heart. You've got to look at it and say, this is for the future, do it for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Danderaw, Precinct 9. I'll be brief because the children have beautifully taken the torch here, as they should. Being an agent for change is not easy, as the previous speaker said. It's difficult. We have to change habits, but we have to take every step we can. We're arguing over technical details. We're arguing over economics. No one in this room, no one in this world today will know everything that plastic does. It took us, I don't know how long to learn that on other hazards to our health. So it's time to move on and change and take a big step. I will vote yes. I hope you'll vote yes. We want to make sure that we can get away from this single-use disposable society in general. I've had reusable bags in my trunk for over a decade. Doesn't cost me anything, doesn't cause me any pain. I carry canvas bags to the mall. I have a reusable water bottle. It's not as hard as people are making it seem. It's moving in the right direction, and I hope you vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Start the clock. Phil Stanway, Precinct 7. There's only 2 points I want to make. The first is I work in Haverhill, and Haverhill switched over to reusable bags about a year ago. It started out pretty rough. You would see people at the checkout counter they didn't want to do, and now a year later, when I go to the market basket, everyone has them. You see construction workers come in, they either put the stuff in their pocket, or they have a bag, or they have a box. So it's a year later, I come to Chelmsford and go to the market basket here, and all I see is plastic, plastic, plastic. And it's very different. And I wonder, if Haverhill can do it, why can't we? The second point was to say that they don't see plastic bags around town. For 14 years, I've been picking up trash in this town every other day, and I can tell you how many I found. The reason you don't see them is because we pick them up, and why pick up hundreds, if not thousands of them with the rest of the group. So they're out there, and 10 years ago to what it is now, it's just as bad, maybe even a bit worse. So the plastic problem is there. Because you don't see it, it doesn't mean it's there. So I'm going to support this because I'm really sick of picking up plastic bags.
Thank you.
Bill Wagner, Precinct 8. I'd like to move the question.
We have a motion to move the question. So what that means is that we're going to vote. A vote to move the questions means that we will then vote either to approve or reject the warrant article. You've got 29 seconds. Please vote.
This is Kelly Beatty for Chelmsford Telemedia. As I sit here listening to all of this, I think Phil Stanaway answered the one question that I had, which is all of these other communities that have adopted this, what is their experience? Are they happy with it? Are they unhappy with it? Do they wish they hadn't? And his one example of Haverhill is that you get used to it. But obviously there's a lot of passion on both sides of this issue. And as pointed out, the large fraction
The motion passes 125 in favor, 14 opposed, no abstentions. So now we will be voting on warrant article 32, which would add a sustainable community section to the code of Chelmsford with a bylaw to regulate the retail use of single-use plastic checkout bags.
And based on the applause alone, it would seem that this is going to be a fairly evenly divided vote. So let's see how it pans out.
The article passes 96 in favor, 41 opposed. We will now go back to Article 24. Okay, Mr. Belansky, the floor is yours. Come on, guys.
Ted, you got it? Okay, good evening. Article 24 proposes to amend the Community Enhancement and Investment Overlay District. Currently, the overlay district prohibits multifamily within the IA limited industrial zoning districts. This amendment proposes to delete that prohibition, which would allow multifamily within IA districts with a special permit from the planning board. The map on the slide indicates the existing zoning map of the town. IA districts are indicated in gray. These areas are located at Brick Hill Road, Technology Drive, Princeton Street, Middlesex Street, Watton Street, and Groton Road. The Route 129 limited industrial area already permits multifamily via a separate zoning overlay. This article is supported by planning and best zoning and planning practices as it allows mixed use. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee voted unanimously against Article 24.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation?
Board of Selectmen voted 4-1 in favor of this article.
Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
The Planning Board voted unanimously for this recommendation.
Thank you. Now's an opportunity for questions or debate, discussion.
Ryan Latina, Precinct 4. Mr. Moderator, through you to the Speaker, can you tell me if Chelmsford is now at the 10% affordable housing project level that we needed to do?
Yes, we are.
And can you tell me, I'm assuming that using this IA limited industrial district approach, how many new housing units do we propose? There's a lot of acreage there in gray from what I can see. How many units could we put in those areas? And I assume affordable?
So with the exception of Route 129, the areas that are being discussed this evening would be a fairly limited opportunity.
How many would that be?
It's
100, 1,000?
It's difficult to give you a number because existing industrial properties could be redeveloped for multifamily purposes. What we can tell you from experience is that multifamily in Chelmsford has predominantly been built on vacant land, and in these industrial areas there's very little vacant land.
And Mr. Moderator, if we think it's very limited, why in the world would we change our light industrial areas to be multifamily if in fact we don't intend or we don't expect there to be multifamily? You can start the clock. The first IA district that became an apartment complex, and all the environmental kids seem to have left, was a 9-acre forest in the CEIOD, BAIO, whatever district off Route 129. The first project cut down 9 acres of perfectly good forest, and I know this because all the animals ended up in my yard and the neighbors' yards. There were 12 turkeys there yesterday, as a matter of fact. The IA district, 2 buildings down from this project, 19 stories worth of buildings in 5-story increments for the most part, a couple stories in the front to hide the 3 5-story buildings that are almost done, is 2 buildings down from a property that used to do metal work. And if you're at all familiar with chemistry and metal work in the city of Woburn, that building, 2 buildings down from this now new housing project, luxury apartments, at $2,400 a month. Not affordable, I guess, but that's what we kind of had set that site aside for. That property had been doing metal work and dumping chemicals in the back of the building, probably in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And we didn't have sewage then, so the chemicals are still there. In fact, the state of Massachusetts, the DEP, I think it's called, the Department of Environmental Protection, discovered this 41 parts per billion TCE. That made Woburn famous, folks. When you dump that chemical in the ground, the state of Massachusetts and the federal government considers 4 parts per billion to be the upper maximum limit of TCE. We have 41 parts per billion at that property, and you know what it did? It went across the street into number 81 Turnpike Road, and their basement has contamination in the air. This stuff gets into the air, and I talked to a chemist, 40 years experience.
Yeah. Mr. Latina, with all due respect, I appreciate the fact about the contamination, but what does this have to do with the number of units in zoning? That's what we're here for.
Mr. Moderator, we're currently saying that we currently prohibit multifamily IA in limited industrial districts. It is not about the number. This isn't a question. This is debate, Mr. Moderator, and I'm allowed
No,
to
I understand, but the bottom line is that I think you're going a little too far afield. So stick to the article, which is why you're either in favor or opposed to this particular article.
Mr. Moderator, sometimes we have to educate our organization here to understand that a light industrial area can be contaminated, and the first project was contaminated to the tune of 41 parts per billion, 10 times the amount.
Right, but Mr. Latina, now we have laws in place for environmental cleanups and brownfield situations, so we don't run into that like they did in Grace and Woburn. So let's stick to the issue, please, sir.
We approved a project in an IA district, Mr. Moderator, 2 years ago. The project was approved in an IA district, and that prohibition was there, and we did it anyway. We approved the project. The area nearby is contaminated. The other areas in town that are light industrial could also have contamination that none of our selectmen knew about in this project on Turnpike in a light industrial area. My point being that we do not want to put residential properties on light industrial areas that are very likely contaminated, because the very first project went 2 doors down from one, and nobody knew about it except one health department person, apparently. No one has taken the contamination out of that property, and this is at the headwaters, and one of our water filter systems that takes in Center Water District. It's within quarter mile of that property, and the water from the contamination, the plume went in the direction of that headwater. So when you dig a basement for these 5-story apartments in an IA district, you darn well better be realizing that you may be digging into contamination. I'm going to vote no. It's not a good idea to put residential in former light industrial areas, and besides that, we'll not have a place to put our industrial areas when you want more businesses to come into town.
Thank you.
George Zaharoulis, Precinct 3. Former planning board member, and I was involved in CIOD and the BAOD. I'm opposed to this. We originally left residential out of IA when we did this. The districts that remain that have potential for residential is much smaller districts. The largest district, which is the Route 129 area, has a separate overlay which does allow the residential. I think the other districts are just too small, and I think it opens up the town for potential conflicts with businesses and residential in those districts because of the size of those districts. So I'm voting no on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Rand, Precinct 2. On page 40 of the Finance Committee report, the IA district there is right next to a couple of stone crushers. It's a quarry area. Westwood also, that's where the tire factory's going. I don't think I want to vote for this because I would hate to have people try to live next to that tire factory and those crushers. They're in Westwood, but they're right next to, if you look at page 40, the IA map there, that's a lot going on there. There's a lot of trucks, a lot of, it's not a very healthy place for people to build.
Thank you.
Kit Harbison, Precinct 7. I just have a question. What is the purpose and why did this article get developed and come into being?
So all I can tell you is that based upon the planning board discussions, which were fairly limited, it supports best planning and zoning practices. Beyond that, you'd have to ask the planning board directly.
Well, I don't understand how this supports best zoning practices. So I'd like someone to speak to that if they could.
I'm not able to answer that question.
Does anyone from the planning board want to address that? Nancy? Yes. There's been a question put by the questioner regarding how this is the best practices.
Okay. So this was brought forward because when we developed the CEIOD, we had a lot of discussion among the planning board members of originally we were going to include residential in the entire CEIOD, including industrial. And I fought it. And I fought it at that time because I was really concerned about residential uses taking up the properties that give us our good jobs in town. And I was really afraid that if we allowed residential into those areas, that we would lose job space. Well, time has proved me wrong. What we've seen with the Route 129 overlay and what we've seen with the current industrial utilizations is that new companies are going into places where they can draw young labor. And young labor is only going into places where they have housing. So the changes that we made to the 129 overlay to allow housing and amenities has been a positive thing. The rest of the IA areas, all but 2 of them currently have multifamily housing either in them or adjacent to them. This is not a dramatic change for those areas. Technology Drive, Princeton Street, Middlesex, all of them have multifamily either in it or around it. Route 40 does not, and Watton Street does not. So it would be changes for those areas. And those are the areas that would actually have the potential of change. Well, the Route 40, we're looking at that in another article, and we're looking at it specifically to add.
Sarah, does that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
My name is Kim Bennett. I live in Precinct 3. I've lived in Chelmsford for 13 years, and we moved to Chelmsford because it was a very pleasant and relatively quiet and quaint town. I am not in favor of any more multifamily building anywhere in Chelmsford unless it's for senior housing. I don't see the need. We have a giant building that just went up, Brick House Pizza in the center. The planning board approved of 6 individual family homes on a half acre of land on Turnpike. Makes no sense. I saw another presentation that's being considered that a developer made not that long ago for another multifamily just inside the center as well. How much more traffic is needed in the center of town? Absolutely none. It's packed as it is. Again, I'm only in favor of multifamily housing if it's for seniors.
Thank you.
Good evening, Doug Bruce, Precinct 9. Mr. Moderator, a question for the speaker or anybody that may be able to address this. Does anybody have any idea what our current industrial zone vacancy rate is?
Townwide, commercial and industrial is about 17%.
Is that historically high? I mean, are we having trouble filling industrially zoned space?
129 is elevated, is as high as it's been.
So
it's trending in the wrong direction.
Excellent. Thank you. If you'd start the clock, Mr. Moderator. Land is a non-renewable resource, but we have the opportunity to make it a renewable resource through our zoning efforts. And as our society has grown and changed over the years, what was appropriately zoned many years ago may need to change. And that's our opportunity to recycle the land, if we may. Now, I understand and I appreciate all the concerns about contamination and traffic and things like that. I've turned this over and over in my head, and I thought, well, what if it were the other way around? What if we were trying to rezone residential to include light industrial? Now, that seems ridiculous, right? But we have high vacancy industrial land. We're having trouble filling that property. If you look at other communities around the state, I'm thinking Burlington with their redevelopment of Third Avenue, Third Road, whatever that is. That was all industrial land that was reclaimed and is now being reused as mixed use. I'd love to see something like that come to Chelmsford. This is a wave of the future, and this is our opportunity to reclaim a non-renewable resource through our zoning efforts. I'm voting yes for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Hall, Precinct 5. Mr. Moderator, you said to the to the Finance Committee. Could you please explain why you voted against this?
Have you ever tried to put toothpaste back into a tube?
Pardon?
Have you ever tried to put toothpaste back into a tube? You can't do it. very difficult. Maybe the problem that we see is over the last few years, we've been trying to increase or change the ratio, shifted from commercial industrial property, from residential to commercial industrial property in order to address the tax levy issue. And the problem that we see with turning more land that's currently zoned industrial and turning it and allowing multifamily in those areas is that once the market demands it and it's built, you've now lost that land. So the other speakers are correct. We have limited land, and there may be some vacancy rates at the time. But the problem is, if the market's demanding multifamily, the multifamily's built, you've now lost more industrial land, more commercial land. You've shifted more towards residential. You've increased the burden on the town. And the toothpaste can't be put back in the tube.
Okay, thank you very much.
Joe Reddy, Precinct 1. The scope of this article is just too large. I will tell you that having been in real estate, both on the residential and commercial side, multifamily housing is so much more valuable to a developer. I watch planning board meetings consistently where residents come in, they are confused by the CEIOD overlay, what that pertains to. You are taking a huge swath of land and turning it into multifamily development. I promise you that every developer will come to me and say, I want to build multifamily housing. You will be inundated with the number of applications. And the one thing that frustrates me the most is that when you pass something like this, the planning board will tell you that it gives them more tools. But what I hear on the back end when the project finally gets approved was, well, it was by right, we really didn't have any option to stop it. So if you don't want to have hundreds and hundreds of houses built in the next year, I would suggest that you vote this down. Have them come back with a smaller swath of land that maybe would fit better for a multifamily housing development site. But the scope of this will just be letting out Pandora's box. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Regazio, Precinct 7. My wife and I moved into this town, believe it or not, 50 years ago, and primarily because it was a single-family home, and that's what we liked about it. Over the past 10, 15 years, we've been fighting to meet the 10% 40B requirement, which we now have. So we don't need more families in the town. We don't need more multifamily units. Think of what the impact is going to be on the school system. If we get multifamily units, it's going to cost beyond, it's going to have an impact on the school system. So I vote against this. We don't need more multifamily houses in Chelmsford. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Bowman, 3 Julia Street. Please start the clock. Thank you. Multifamily does not belong in IA districts. IA districts are specifically for limited industrial activity. Zoning is supposed to have a purpose. By mixing zones like purposes, as far as residential into limited industrial, now you're confusing the landscape of what is and is not done. There are a number of communities around here that have very definitive residential areas, industrial, and commercial areas. So when you go through those towns, it's very clear what is going on. And the residential areas are quiet and nicely kept. Putting multifamily in industrial just confuses the issue. The problem with industrial activity, having residents live in that same area, is that, at least up to now, it appears the town is not doing the best job about following or investigating or inspecting some of these limited industrial activities, such as the TCE contamination that was mentioned earlier. So the problem with that is you have industrial right across the street from residential, but it's in an IA district. The problem is the aquifer goes across Turnpike Road in that area. So that is why a residential home who had no connection to this machine shop is now contaminated. So that is part of the issue of why, for health and safety reasons, it is best to keep multifamily homes in residential areas and not mixed with limited industrial. Now, Route 129 along Billerica Road with the commercial office buildings was specifically zoned for mixed use, where you would have commercial or industrial on the bottom and then residential on the top. A number of different communities are doing that, not only in Massachusetts, but across the nation. However, you still have the same issue. Without having good inspection and knowingness of what is going on with these activities, you don't know the potential health and safety issues that can come across these particular residents. And it's preventable. We should be incorporating prevention for the purposes of safety. There should be some sort of built-in safety margin in these particular issues. In addition to that, the 2010 Master Plan and the 2011 Affordable Housing Plan and the 2017 Affordable Housing Plan and the 2012 Request for Proposal, the RFP, for these newer zoning bylaws incorporating the recommendations from the 2010 Master Plan and the 2011 Affordable Housing Plan speak specifically about not putting residential units in the IA district. That was the main goals, to not do that. So here we are talking about doing just that. So if the vision was to have clear residential and clear industrial and commercial, then what happened to that vision?
1 minute.
Thank you. So what happened to that vision? Either it is the vision for the town or it's not. Either we're going to mix residents within limited industrial and commercial, or we're not. And if we do, now you have the additional problem of not only businesses, but now you have pedestrians back and forth on the street, and this is not something that a suburban residential town is used to. So therefore, the town should also build pedestrian bridges or something like that to minimize accidents on the road, because they will happen. And one did happen last year. A pedestrian got hit crossing 129 and had to be medevaced. So I'm going to vote no on this warrant article, and I encourage you to do the same. Keep the zoning clear in Chelmsford.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nancy Arroway, Precinct 1. Yes, start the clock. So if I listen to what I've heard here tonight, we'd have to say that the folks that live in the apartments and the senior housing on Technology Drive really don't want to be living there because it's an industrial area. The folks that live on Princeton Street really don't want to be living next to the mills. The folks that just went into the affordable housing on Route 110 in South Chelmsford don't want to be living there because it's adjacent to an industrial area. I don't think so. I hear the argument about putting the toothpaste back. And I guess my concern is that we have the best economic conditions right now for business that we've had in a long, long time. And we still have a very high vacancy rate in our industrial areas. So it brings the question that I have to ask is, how much industrial space do we really have the market for in this area, and how do we draw other companies to come in? Not providing the environment for young workers is not the way to get new companies to come to us. And the other issue is that we have fulfilled our 40B commitments. We no longer have a situation where a developer can come in and put a large-scale housing anywhere in town that they want to put it. And oh, by the way, we don't have any multifamily zones left to put apartments into that can be built up. There's no space allocated for that. So then, if we have a need for housing without yards, and our young people are saying that's what they want, and our older people are saying that's what they want, where are we going to put them? Do we chase them out of town? When your kids finally get around to leaving the house, do they have to go someplace else? When your parents decide to give up their single-family house, do they have to go elsewhere? Or are we going to create a situation in town where we have housing for them? And that's a question that has to be asked for a number of the articles that are on the table tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alvin Draymond, Precinct 5. You were asked earlier about industrial utilization, and you indicated there was a 17% vacancy rate. And you said that vacancy rate was greatest where?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You said that the vacancy rate was highest in what area?
It's highest in the 129 area.
Which is an area that is already zoned this way? Is that correct?
Correct.
So we aren't going to fix that area by this because we've already done it and it didn't work. In the other areas where it is zoned light industrial, as light industrial, not mixed, must have a higher occupancy because that area had the lower and it has to come out. So I don't see that we're working to solve a problem.
I'm sorry. Are you in debate now? Because I'm not sure.
I apologize. Please start the clock and probably take 30 seconds off me. I did start with a question, but yes, I am in debate. I don't see that we are necessarily finding a solution to a problem. And I think this is probably, I'm sorry, I disagree with the prior speaker. I think this is you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube situation, and I oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to move the question, so I'm going to sit down.
Yeah, well, unless somebody's going to get up, I'm going to just allow us to vote on Article 24. This requires a 2/3 vote. A vote yes will amend the zoning bylaw by deleting the prohibition on multifamily housing within an 1A zoning district.
As the last speaker pointed out, this is not a solution for the Route 129 corridor because the ability to have mixed-use housing already exists there. It's to basically expand that concept, that is, allowing multifamily housing in light industrial areas elsewhere in town. And if you saw on the map, it was a pretty large chunk of territory. I think for the town meeting,
the article fails. 18 in favor, 120 opposed. Now we are actually going to go back in time to Article 22. Go ahead, Ms. Arroway.
Thank you. Article 22 is the result of work that was done by the Route 40 study committee this past year. The committee was initiated after an article was put forward for public comment last fall and met with a lot of feedback and kickback from the local residents. The planning board established the committee. It went through 9 months of work, and this article is a recommendation. I'm going to turn it over to Pam Armstrong, the chair of the study committee, to present this article.
Good evening, Pam Armstrong, Chairman of the Route 40 Study Committee and a resident of the Scotty Hollow Drive. I'd like to thank the members of the town meeting for allowing me to present the area in question and the background for the Article 22 and the committee's recommendations. Article 22 is proposing rezone lots on the north side of Route 40, currently zoned RC multifamily, to IA industrial. This is the first 200 feet from the street, as the remainder of the area is already IA light industrial. To those who may not be familiar with the area Article 22 is discussing, it's approximately 51 acres on the north side of Route 40 Groton Road, between the ramps of Route 3 and the Westford line. It's comprised of single-family residential homes zoned RC, which allows two-family homes to be in the first 200 feet, and IA zoning in the remainder, which consists of privately owned land, which is currently a rock crushing facility, trucking company, and approximately 22 acres in Chelmsford owned by the Westford-based Newport Materials. The state also owns a parcel which is not included in the calculation of the 51 acres, but lies within the area. On the Westford side, there's an active granite facility, wetlands, and Newport Materials has been permitted to open a new asphalt plant. Route 40 is 10.5 miles in length, a state route existing since 1940, connecting Groton to North Chelmsford Vinyl Square. This stretch of land crosses 6 brooks, 5 ponds, 1 lake, 2 horse farms, a cow farm, a forefathers cemetery, and a castle, the Bancroft Castle. You'll find approximately 225 residential homes along Route 40, and Westford has created an area consisting of medical buildings, banks, a daycare, and offices on the other side of the town line, and they have recently added sidewalks and bike lanes for safe pedestrian access from residential neighborhoods. So what has brought us here? Last fall, there was a hearing to obtain public comments on a proposed zoning change of the north and south sides of North Chelmsford on Route 40 Groton Road. In this area, from industrial and residential to commercial shopping center zoning. At that time, there was a public outcry, and it was suggested a committee be formed to study the area and make a recommendation to the planning board as to a future vision of this area of North Chelmsford and if any zoning changes should be made. So the planning board put together a 7-member committee that consisted of a select person, 2 planning board members, and 4 residents. The committee first met over a year ago, September of 2018, and continued to meet over a 9-month period. We held 16 meetings, usually 2 to 3 hours in length, and welcomed all public input at every meeting. Our committee was asked to create a future vision, an amenable use for the area of Chelmsford that supports the current residents, the existing neighborhoods, the future use of the land, and the benefits to the town and the area without detracting from our current businesses and commercial areas in Chelmsford. To get a better understanding of the task given to us by the town, the committee made a list of who we thought might be stakeholders or people and groups within the town that may have facts or opinions about this area in North Chelmsford, and we brought them to speak before the committee. We already had economic development, planning board, and a select person on the committee, so we invited 12 other individuals or groups to speak to us. The next step the committee took was to look at the current zoning and write down all the possible options for zoning. This became our 7 alternate zoning options, and we discussed in detail all the possible options and what could be allowed in this area based on the different zoning. We did this for both the south and the north side of Route 40. In conclusion, The majority of the committee felt that the best use of the land was to leave the south side RC, which is two-family zoning, and to remind you that this body in 2011 changed the zoning from RB to RC, single-family to multifamily zoning on this section of land. And the majority of the committee felt this was appropriate to maintain. It was good for the existing homes, the abutting properties, and to prevent any zoning conflicts or creep zoning into the adjoining residential areas. To resolve the current zoning conflict on the north side between the residential in the front and the light industrial in the back, the committee recommended changing the zoning of the first 200 feet, which is currently RC multifamily, to IA light industrial to be consistent with the entire area on the north side. The current situation in this area, to be clear to town meeting, is that a new owner has purchased or has under agreement a majority of the homes on both the north and the south side. These homes have been vacated and are empty at this time, and surveying has been done for future construction. Now, none of the town boards or our committee members have seen any definitive plans as to what the new owner or the parties plan to do with these properties. Tonight you have two choices. You can vote this down and leave the first 200 feet residential multifamily on the north side and leave the balance IA light industrial with no zoning changes at all. This will permit only 1 and 2 family homes to be built within the frontage area. This will leave a zoning conflict. By not making any zoning changes, you're going to complement the possible development of the similar 1 to 2 family homes on the south side of the street if this is what the proposed new owner decides to build. If you vote to approve the zoning change to IA for the first 200 feet, this supports economic development, giving a future owner or developer the ability to add allowable uses. It uses current residential setbacks for grandfathered homes. It allows residential use to continue to exist for those living in the area that aren't planning to move and have not sold their homes, and could start the change for a stronger business tax base to the community. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank the Route 40 Study Committee for their time and attention and detail to the commitment of this review and recommendation, and we welcome any questions.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
A majority of the Finance Committee voted to approve Article 22 with a vote of 6-1.
Board of Selectmen have a recommendation. I'm sorry, does the Select Board have a recommendation?
I actually don't think that's been changed by the legislature yet.
Well, I'm changing it.
So the Board of Selectmen unanimously recommends approval 5-0.
And
Article 22.
Planning Board?
Planning Board majority votes for it, 6-1.
Thank you. Questions?
Questions only. How many homes or residences are on the north side that would be affected by this?
I'm going to say it's about 6 to 8.
How many of them have people in there who are not currently planning to move?
At least 1. 3?
Well, that's at least.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jerry Hall. I reside at 34 Lovett Lane. I think a little history is in order. About a little over a year ago, a plan came out of the town manager's office and the community development folks for significant development up there on both the south and north sides of Route 40. We saw a bank, a 24-hour gas station, hundreds of senior housing units, 5-story office building, a chain restaurant with a drive-through. There was even a hotel. There was plans to have a road go from Route 40 to Main Street. They had a public hearing down at the old town hall. Over 225 people attended, and most rejected that plan. The developer was there who had already bought the land, and he seemed a little petulant that we wouldn't rezone to his needs. Those people who did support it, and there was about a dozen or so, were folks who would like to take the money and run. We who live in town and plan to stay in town objected to it. This program was so roundly rejected that the plans to bring the plan to town meeting in 2018 fall was abandoned. Now, the planning board, the duly elected people who actually do control zoning, appointed a committee, and they developed a plan, not behind closed doors, surprise. They developed a plan where the public is invited to every single meeting. They were charged with looking at the future need of the whole town and not the immediate needs of one developer. And they've come up with a reasonable compromise. And the public response to this plan has been positive. We have not had hundreds of people showing up at the public input sessions objecting to it. But there has been some opposition. The committee itself has been attacked as a bunch of amateurs. Really? 3 planning board members, a member who was a planning board member, and 2 select persons? I doubt it. The committee was criticized because they didn't analyze the economic impact of the highest value and best use of the land. But that level of development was already rejected by the people in the summer of 2018. And lastly, we have a last-minute scare, a health scare, that living near the asphalt plant would be detrimental. And I'm wondering who you're going to believe on that issue. A public committee that signs their work, the EPA with years of experience and people to study these things, or an anonymous attack ad that was in a recent publication, unsigned. Now, I'm an abutter, and I'll be 70 in a few months, and I'm not worried about the health aspects of the plant. Odors, yes, but then again, I'm objecting to any odors that come from the fast food restaurants on the border of my property. Now we have on the horizon yet another study, a state grant to study the best use and the highest values for Route 3 interchanges. Really? How many bites at the apple will the developers get? The people have spoken on this level of development. Please vote yes on 22 and 23 on these Route 40 changes. A reasonable compromise developed by reasonable people, reflecting the will of the residents. There's a Roman saying that has withstood the test of time. Vox populi, vox dei. The voice of the people is the voice of God. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Dennis Shane, Precinct 4. I've got really one question for someone. I don't know who can answer it. How does this change affect the recent purchasers' options? So have they actually purchased it yet?
We know that of some properties that have actually been purchased and some properties that are under tentative agreements.
So if you have something and zoning's changed out from underneath you, are you grandfathered in? How does that work?
If you are already there and you have a building on it, you're grandfathered.
They've purchased it. They haven't actually done anything. So they would be under the new zoning because they haven't done it.
They would be under the new zoning for new development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Duffett, Precinct 7, and also a member of the Finance Committee. I have just one question before I begin. Could you list the names and addresses of the members of the committee?
You want to go through that?
Do you need the addresses?
Well, I just want to make it, because
why don't
I just want to know where people live.
Why don't you, Kathy, I would much prefer if you ask if the members of the committee all lived in the neighborhood.
Okay, that's
or how many of them did. That would be, I would be much more comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. Good suggestion.
There's a 7-member committee. 3 people live within the area. 3 people live completely out of the area, and I live on the other side of the highway in North Chelmsford.
Okay, thanks. I really appreciate the efforts of the committee, and I think you did an excellent job. However, I want to urge caution on this matter. This has been a complex issue since the beginning of the discussion regarding the Route 40 and Route 3 interchange began. We as a community should have a long-range view that is consistent with our desire to maintain our charm as a community while allowing individual property owners options and also viable options for increasing our commercial tax base. Citizens have strongly expressed the desire for tax relief, and the Select Board has voted to shift the tax burden to our commercial base. But for this to be a real factor, our commercial tax base has got to increase. The town of Chelmsford just received a $60,000 grant from the state, free money for Chelmsford, woohoo, that never happens, to evaluate what is the best option would be for all the Route 3 intersections. It seems odd to me that we would vote to make zoning changes without all the possible information. Perhaps in the end, this is actually the best option, but why the rush to judgment? Let's utilize the opportunity to review all of our intersections and have a consistent town plan. Once a zoning change is made, development and property changes can happen, and how are you going to go back to the toothpaste? So just a few free-flowing thoughts here. When in your life has it been a good idea to make a decision without all the facts? Second point, how many times has this very group met, discussed zoning changes, only to discover that what we have voted in got the impact and effect was not what we as a community desired? The homeowners in this area have experienced a tumultuous time. They, the homeowners, deserve our due diligence and our thoughtful consideration of all the facts. The report's suggestions of a facility that would service the elderly seems positive. However, no developer has expressed interest, and the location near the asphalt plant brings that option into question. Postponing a decision until after the planning grant is utilized is not risking that option. I see no harm and only benefits from waiting, and I'm urging everyone to be cautious and vote no. And I do thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Chris Bowman, 3 Julio Street. Please start the clock. Thank you very much. One of the a previous speaker stated that he has no concerns or that there would be any health concerns regarding the asphalt plant in Westford. However, our Board of Health has many concerns concerning the health of this particular asphalt plant, and they unanimously voted to oppose this particular the next particular warrant article based on health concerns, and there is a connection between this warrant article and the next one, number 23, because if this section, the first 200 feet, goes to an IA district, then there's a plan to put senior housing there. So we have to keep that in mind in the full scope of what is transpiring here. So we just voted that there should be no multifamily housing, which would include senior housing in an IA district. So there's no real need to change this to an IA district. And I'm going to vote no, and I encourage you to do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Ginger Skoog, Precinct 6. I would first like to, I'm in debate, so you can start the clock. I'd first like to thank the Route 40 Committee for taking the first step in going back and reevaluating what they were doing when they were asked to come up with plans. I think that there's a lot of work that's get put into this, and it takes a lot of time and effort to bring all of the opinions to bear. I'd also like to point out that in that same vein of bringing all of the options and the information together, I find it unsettling that you would bring this article forward given the recent grant from the state for looking into all of the interchanges of Route 3 in Chelmsford, and that you would not pause to get just that much more information. We continue to see in town these changes that we make, and without all of the information that is available to us, and then we end up regretting it. So I will be voting no on this, with the hope that the Route 40 committee will be able to come back with that information from the state and at least verify for town meeting that this was, in fact, the right and best with all the information that is available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bug. My name is Nancy Gillis. I live at 248 Groton Road, North Chelmsford. I am on the committee. I think I'm still on the committee until this is done. Somebody had mentioned that the developer did not say anything about what they were going to do. I am not moving. I am keeping my property. I am going to continue to live there. Therefore, I got a letter from the attorney stating, hi, we want to buy your house. We're going to think about putting senior housing or memory care right there. And that was their way of trying to say, hey, we want to buy your house. Well, let me tell you, if you can figure out how to get all the stuff I have on my land, off my land, to another piece of land for the same price, hey, fine, no problem. But they're not going to do that, ever. I don't know what you're talking about as far as this grant. This grant was not part of what we had in the 9 months that we were doing this. We were told that this was going to be 4 weeks and done. 9 months later, we're still here. We learned everything. We learned IA, we learned RC, RB, we learned a lot of letters that don't go together normally. If you end up deciding that, no, this isn't what you want to do, I agree, keep the committee, because otherwise it's going to be another 9 months just in learning alone. I tend to talk now with RC, RB, and my husband's looking at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, I just said that on TV. Anyway, you wanted the address, 248 Groton Road.
Thank you.
Pam Armstrong, Scotty Hollow Drive, and Chairman of the Route 40 Study Committee. I just want to make a clarification. As I explained, there is a developer, there is an owner of the land on both the north and the south side of a majority of these homes. If you do not choose to rezone, which is fine, that developer will most likely build brand new residential duplex units that will take away the opportunity for the study grant to give you an opportunity to develop this land, because now you have a zoning conflict and you have to cross the residential land to get to the IA land, and you're going to reduce the ability of the town to develop that property to something of a better or higher use than what you currently have available to you now. This developer, from what I understand, has plans they're going to bring forward to the planning board that no, we have not seen yet for some type of development. So you do have an option to not rezone, and you will most likely see brand new residential properties across the frontage of that IA property, and you'll create the zoning conflict that the last article most of the people spoke they didn't want to see. Or you can change that zoning conflict to IA. You can reduce the ability to build those multifamily properties across the frontage and hopefully start the redevelopment of that area with some amenable uses to the neighborhood, some walking, some areas where residents can walk to use services in that area and not have a zoning conflict. So I just want people to understand, yes, the grant is a great idea, but if you already have brand new residential homes built there, you're reducing what the grant is going to be able to allow you to do. By zoning to IA, you're going to give that grant an opportunity. So I wanted people just to understand that.
Thank you.
Sam Chase, Precinct 1 rep, and also member of the Economic Development Commission. You can start the clock. I've read the Route 40 Study Committee final report, actually several times, and all of the available minutes, which started in September of 2018, meetings went through May of 2019. I can't find any evidence, either in the report or the supporting meeting minutes, that an economic impact analysis was done, nor can I find any evidence that the committee's final recommendation is based on any substantive, relevant economic impact research that they themselves initiated. Reports and studies that may have been handed to the committee by some presenters do not qualify as initiative research. Except for the materials provided by presenters, the report and the minutes reveal that much of the input received was from residents and committee members who were expressing their concerns, opinions, and preferences on how the area should or should not be zoned. The committee appears to have given little weight to the input from town official presenters in forming its final recommendation. The Economic Development Commission delivered a consistent message at 3 separate public sessions regarding the proposed zoning, twice with the Planning Board on July 24th and August 28th, and then again on September 26th at the Finance Committee. That message was, additional study is required to determine what zoning will produce the best economic outcome for all Chelmsford residents, and any zoning recommendation that considers highest and best economic use should be supported by relevant market and financial data. Now, of course, it goes without saying that any zoning changes must be done keeping the conflicting interests and concerns of all residents in mind, and the EDC stressed that in its messages. I agree with the sentiments expressed by the dissenting Finance Committee member, who said that the receipt of a state planning grant that was just recently awarded to study the 4 highway interchanges along Route 3 should be considered and used to help determine the best course of action here. Zoning changes have long-range implications for residents' quality of life, home values, tax revenue, potential future development, and consistency for the entire town. I agree that it is short-sighted to proceed with a change without having the information that a professional economic impact analysis can provide. Therefore, I will be voting against this article, and I urge this body to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen Arrington, Precinct 2. I have a question. Might be directed at town council or another member of the town. I was looking for a more specific definition of light industrial. What type of uses could go into that type of zoning? Is it light commercial, or is it very specific industrial uses go in there? Maybe Evan could answer.
Evan's going to try.
So it's defined as light manufacturing. Indoor manufacturing predominantly from previous prepared materials or finished products or parts, including processing, fabrication, assembly, treatment, packaging, and distribution, typically characterized by noise, odor, smoke, heat, glare, and vibration being contained within the building with no external effects detectable across property lines. Examples include food, textile, leather, wood, paper, chemical, plastic, metal products, and renewable or alternative energy. Excludes basic industrial processing of raw materials or any outdoor storage of materials. And then we additionally define heavy manufacturing,
Okay.
and we exclude heavy manufacturing.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alvin Draymond, Precinct 5. I'm going to address you again. You just read the description of light industrial, is that correct?
Light manufacturing.
Light manufacturing. What was the zoning of the area that was used for the asphalt plant?
That's heavy.
In Westford. How was that zoned?
So Westford originally had it zoned as light manufacturing. They did not have it zoned as heavy. Since then, they've rezoned to prohibit heavy manufacturing.
When did they rezone it?
After the fact.
After the fact. So courts have already ruled that your definition of light industrial includes an asphalt plant. Is that correct?
No, in Chelmsford, we've always regulated heavy manufacturing differently, separately from light manufacturing. Asphalt plants are not permitted in Chelmsford.
Am I correct that the town of Westford fought that asphalt plant?
Unsuccessfully.
So if someone were to try to put an asphalt plant in Chelmsford or some equally obnoxious, could we stop them? Westford failed.
In Chelmsford, it's not a permitted use.
Okay.
One that exists now is pre-existing non-conforming.
Okay, town council would like to weigh in.
So the Chelmsford table of uses actually explicitly prohibits asphalt manufacturing plants from any zoning district, including the industrial zoning district. So we would not run into the same problem that occurred in Westford.
Well, I doubt that anyone would build an asphalt plant right next to an asphalt plant, but something similarly obnoxious potentially could be.
Are you asking questions now, or are you discussing?
I think I just moved to discussion, but that was basically my point, that the concern of what might end up going in there.
So if you're familiar with Route 129, there's all kinds of industrial manufacturing facilities there. None of them are considered heavy manufacturing, but there's plenty of light manufacturing, processing, fabrication. There's plenty of chemicals down there. There's plenty of fabrication and high-tech industrial type uses. Other uses that are allowed in light industrial areas in which this area is contemplated for rezoning include office, medical, hotels, warehouse distribution, as well as assisted and independent senior living.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You may start the clock. Glenn Thorne, Precinct 5. I might be for this proposal. I might in the future vote in favor of it. I was actually thinking about voting in favor of it tonight. But that's one good thing about coming to town meeting is you learn things. As people in front of you, the previous speaker informed us about his research on the report that was presented to us here. I also learned that there was a grant that I didn't know anything about. So and I do know that the previous speaker is one of the best researchers in the town. He was the head of the town charter committee, did a tremendous amount of research in the history of the charter, and everything he touches is well researched. So I didn't have any advance notice of what he was going to say, but was delighted to hear it. From the point of view is now I am not going to vote for this tonight because there is the opportunity to gain additional information on the economic impact that we don't have yet. Might be good, might be bad, I don't know. So since I don't know at this time, I would like to have this additional work that's going to be done on the grant money, which has been mentioned before, but I didn't realize it would yield this particular information. Use the grant money to find out some of the economic impact of this and other intersections off Route 3 to help us in this decision. And if the previous speaker finds there's a gap in the information based on the economic impact, trust me, there is a gap. And I'm going to wait till that gap is filled before I vote in favor of this, so tonight I am not.
Thank you.
Meredith Moore, Precinct 3. I have a kind of a clarification question. So if we vote no on this, it stays what it is now, where there's multifamily houses that could possibly be built in the front. IA stays in the back. So again, putting more strain on our schools for that area and more traffic and all of that. We vote yes, it goes all IA. You've just clarified what the IA means, so no gas stations and things like that. Or it could eventually, with this new grant that we're hearing, be relooked at and go back to the complete original plan that all of us in that area were against. Mm-hmm. Am I correct in that? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry? Is that
good?
Okay, so then we'd be right back to the original fight against all of the original plans. Okay.
Right. Okay. Mr. Van Dyne?
Donald Van Dyne, Planning Board, through the moderator to Mr. Belansky. Point of clarification. My understanding is that I have not, and maybe you have, seen a plan that identifies the north side, any development on the north side. The housing plan, I believe that was presented by the developer, was on the south side, on the RC for the two-family. Is there actually a plan for multifamily on the north side?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no plans for this. They haven't been submitted. Mr. Moderator, for the sake of information, could I read the uses that are permitted in an IA zone?
I think that Mr. Belansky addressed that adequately.
No,
And
he described light industrial. He did not describe what could be put there.
If someone else wants to have that, okay, but there's no question before you on that. Go ahead.
Hi, Virginia Timmons. I'm in Precinct 3. I was also a member of the study committee. Actually, I did want to ask the question, could you clarify what else is allowed in an IA zone?
I could do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, going down the list. So some of these uses are permitted by right. Some require ZBA approval and some require planning board approval. One of the first thing in the list is facilitated and independent and senior living facilities, including Alzheimer's facilities, assisted living facilities, and independent living facilities. Next, we have congregate living. We have accessories to residential uses, including major recreational equipment, animals accessory to buildings, barn sales, yard sales, home occupations. We have exempt uses, which are farms and other things, churches and such. Licensed family daycare facilities are permitted. The garage sales, flea markets, cemeteries, municipal facilities, municipal garages and repair shops, essential services, hospitals, and helipads are permitted with planning board approval. Let's see. Commercial non-exempt agricultural use is permitted. Non-exempt farm stands, non-exempt educational use, animal clinics, kennels, nursing and convalescent and rehabilitation homes, funeral homes, motels or hotels, parking garages and structures, offices, medical offices and centers, medical clinics, indoor commercial entertainment and recreation facilities, wireless communication facilities, fairs, carnivals, and outdoor events, health clubs, family daycare homes, solar voltaic facilities, let's see, earth removal, light manufacturing, contractors' yards, which is what we have there today, wood operations, retail sale of goods, the majority of which are produced or undergo processing on the premises, self-storage mini warehouses, bakeries, warehouses, research and development, that's it.
Aren't you glad you asked?
There's lots of things that can be put there.
Thank you. You can start the clock. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things from my perspective. There was a comment made about consistency earlier by a previous speaker, and there's been a lot of inconsistency in my mind in terms of rationale for delaying or accelerating. So on February 13th, the committee gave a preliminary report to the planning board, at which point the majority of the planning board decided they wanted the committee to finish their work. At that same meeting, a member of the EDC wanted to push the work forward for Springtown meeting and basically let the planning board wrap it up and move it to Springtown meeting. On July 24th, the letter that was read into the planning board record by the EDC talked about why the rush for Fall Town meeting, and actually I will acknowledge, say that maybe there's a bigger picture to look at, and also went at great lengths to try to discredit the committee. On August 28th, at the planning board public hearing, the EDC stated that they were going to go to the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen with an argument for best and highest use. On September 26th, the letter read into the record at FinCom by the EDC focused solely on the new grant that they just learned about. And at the Board of Selectmen meeting on October 7th, the EDC was not represented, but the argument for the asphalt plant was brought forward for the first time. So there hasn't really been a lot of consistency, in my opinion. I will say also, I'd like to clarify that there have been some assertions that the committee rejected the grant study. January, at the end of January, was the first meeting where we started to review the first overlay with the senior housing concept that you'll hear about in the next article. On May 28th, we were reviewing the first revision of our final report to provide to the planning board. I have here the call for proposals from ComsBuy for the planning assistance grant. It was due May 24th. So there's no way that we could have known about this grant. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. If this body wants to see what happens with it, that's fine. But I really would like to just commend the committee because we did the best with the best resources that we had. The other thing I'd just like to remind you, with the long list that was just read, which includes senior housing, and other things, if we do nothing tonight, I want to reiterate what Pam said, which means the developer is probably going to continue to build homes. If you are able to extend that IA to the street, you're opening up the opportunity for the grant study to do more. And you're opening up the opportunity for the developer to do a little bit more than just build new homes and revitalize that area. In terms of economic data, the economic data that I recall seeing from the town presentation in August of last year at the public hearing was that the analysis for rezoning the entire north side to commercial and the first 300 feet of the south side to commercial, they did some comparisons to Drum Hill and other areas, and the estimate was that it may provide another $1 million or less in commercial tax revenue to the town.
1 minute.
Which translates to about $70 per person on their property tax. So just to kind of put that in perspective, I really don't know that whether you rezone a commercial or consider what is amenable to the community to try to provide some economic advancement is really going to be big, huge dollars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam Chase, Precinct 6, and member of the Economic Development Commission. I have a great deal of respect for anyone in this town who steps up and serves on a volunteer committee. I know a number of the folks that served on the Route 40 Study Committee personally, and I've come to know others. I've come to have a great deal of respect for Select Person Timmons as a selectman, and I do not doubt her integrity or sincerity one bit. However, I do object to the characterization of the Economic Development Commission's message as being conflicting and changing. We made 3 public presentations, and the message was the same. Additional study is required. Now, it is true that we did not know about the state economic grant until 2 days, actually, before we presented to the Finance Committee. That information had just come in. But that is not a conflicting thing. It is a complementary thing to the notion that additional study is required, and it was always framed within the context of an economic impact study. It is absolutely not true that the letter that was read into the Planning Board's record on July 24th discredited the Route 40 Study Committee in any way. In the last paragraph of that letter, we said, the EDC requests that the Planning Board delay rezoning consideration of the Route 40 corridor for the fall town meeting. The EDC advocates a collaborative approach as noted in the master plan, using the Route 40 study recommendation as a baseline. And then it goes on to say how we feel that that should be extended out. If we were going to discredit the work of the committee, we would certainly not recommend using the study results as a baseline for further study. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Emily Antle, Precinct 2. I was also one of the select board members on the Route 40 Study Committee. I was the original one, and then Virginia ran and became the second. So I have some questions about the study money. So it is for $60,000?
A total of $60,000, of which the state will provide $50,000 of it.
So we get $50,000 for that. How many exchanges are there in the town of Chelmsford for Route 3 that this would affect?
This would study 3 interchanges along the Route 3 corridor. It would not include the Route 129 interchange.
So that's like $17,500 per exchange?
You can look at it that way, sure.
Okay. So how much does a study cost, and would we get more benefit letting the Route 40 study committee conclusions go forward and then spending 25 on the remaining 2 exchanges rather than spending do you get a better study for 25 than you would for 17.5, or?
Well, the study will likely study all 3 interchanges simultaneously. Okay. Much of the data in the background, local data and regional data would be the same. The benefit of studying all 3 interchanges is to figure out what the common themes are, the common challenges, and then figure out a long-term future vision so that they're either complementing each other or not competing against one another.
Okay, that makes sense. So if this body decides that the Route 40 Study Committee's work is valid and should go forward as is, do you think that would help or hinder someone using that money to study the other exchanges? Like, would that set a tone? Would that set a bar? How would that affect that?
My assumption or expectation is that that study would be working with a dedicated committee, which would need to be determined. But any additional, with every committee in town, any additional consultant support with additional data and value added is beneficial.
Okay. So we would take another committee to look at the other 2 exchanges plus Route 40. Would that?
Well, it has to be some committee who engages with the consultant. That could be an existing standing board or committee, such as the Planning Board or the Economic Development Committee, or the community may decide that it requires continuation of the existing committee or makeup of a new committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alvin Draymond, Precinct 5, yet again. Beg your patience. You gave a list of various uses. Did I hear you correctly that a solar farm would be one of them?
It's permitted there.
For that reason alone, perhaps we should really seriously look into what the best use is. Maybe that isn't the best use, but that is a really weird and awkwardly shaped area. Solar panels really don't care what shape the area that they're in is. So
I'm not sure whether you're asking questions or arguing at this
I'm sorry.
point.
I guess that was.
You do this all the time to me, and it just confuses me. I'm sorry.
I apologize for confusing you, but I will probably continue that practice. So just suggesting that with that possibility, we think of reconsidering and rethinking it out with this $60,000 grant. So I would, at this point, oppose the motion, but mainly just to postpone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Gillis, 248 Groton Road. I have a question for Evan or Mike, if possible. At the beginning of the committee meetings, we had asked for more studies. Who pays for those studies? All of the studies that needed to be done, not just the route for the interchange.
I believe you're referring to an air quality study?
Yeah, that was one of them. Who pays for that?
There wasn't any money for an air quality study.
Right, you told me though, and you told us who pays for that. You said that that was done by the developer. We were told it was non-project specific.
So what I was likely referring to is back in August of last year when Mike McCall and I were presenting. Part of that developer proposal was that they would undertake traffic mitigation studies, water and sewer infrastructure mitigation studies, typical
So
studies
all
that
the
are
studies
required,
that needed to be done
that
would
are
have been done
typically
by the
required.
developer, which meant there needed to be a project in place
There
after
needed
we
to
were
be a
told.
discussion, yes,
Okay, after we were told not to be project specific.
correct.
Okay, so that's why there was no studies done?
Within your process, my understanding was you asked for an air quality study, there was no money available, and then you indicated, or the committee indicated, that you weren't doing a developer-driven or project-based rezoning, you were looking at it objectively.
Okay.
So there was
Thank
no
you.
need to do studies.
Thank you.
Okay.
George Zaharolis, Precinct 3, move the question.
Okay, we have a motion to move the question. A yes vote would enable the town meeting reps to vote on Article 22, finally.
Discussion, as we expected, on Article 22, having to do with the change in zoning along the Route 40 corridor, which has, as you can tell, had a checkered history. However, it looks like the town meeting reps are encouraged by what they have seen and want to see this zoning change go forward. I'm sorry, I apologize. This is to move the question, so this is not for the article itself. But they are.
The motion passes
they are ready
121
to
in favor,
vote.
14 opposed, no abstentions. So now we are going to be voting on Article 22. If you vote yes, you are amending the zoning bylaw by changing the zoning of the individual properties from RC to 1A.
It is an interesting.
IA, sorry.
It is an interesting sort of catch-22 that there is a proposal to develop part of this area that sort of requires an urgent decision. On the other hand, as you've heard, there's a new $60,000 grant. In any case, it looks like this is going to be postponed to some later date. Town meeting representatives are apparently not eager to see this zoning change go forward.
The article fails, 58 in favor, 79 opposed, 2 abstentions. Article 23.
All right. So now we have the north side that is IA in the back and continues to be RC in the front. Article 23 is a motion to apply an overlay to this district. An overlay provides optional uses. It is not mandatory to use. In the case of this particular overlay, it promotes some uses that are already permitted in the IA portion and are not permitted in the RB portion. So it would permit them into the RB. It also provides new optional uses for small commercial services and restaurants. So this is an overlay that permits commercial where the IA does not, the COA does not, but this overlay would allow the implementation of some level, not huge, not CC as was opposed last year for shopping centers, but small implementations of small restaurants and service sales. Again, I'm going to let Pam go through the rationale behind it and the activities that were done.
Pam Armstrong, Chairman of the Route 40 Study Committee and resident of Scotty Hollow Drive. I want to thank you again for letting me present the background to Article 23. Article 23 is proposing to adopt a new zoning overlay called the Continuing Care Community Overlay District, or the CCCOD. The committee that made the last recommendation in Article 22 took things one step further. After hearing all the input from the stakeholders and the public input, we developed an optional use overlay that provides use incentives and some new use tables for the north side of Route 40. The creation of the overlay, called the Continuing Care Overlay District, began. Evan Belansky came to several meetings to aid in the discussion for clarification and continuity with existing zoning definitions and tables. The purpose is to allow housing for continuing care, seniors, and to add complementary services and amenities. This overlay would complement the area, as the senior center is located just down the road in Route 40. Age-restricted housing is nearby on Groton Road, at Smith Street, and at Technology Drive. There's a nursing facility at Drum Hill and Technology Drive. There are medical facilities located at Technology Drive and doctor's offices in Westford on Route 40, Technology Drive, and Drum Hill. So transportation and support services can access all these facilities easily. So what does this overlay look like? The details are in your warrant books, but briefly, some aspects are that it promotes the current allowable uses of facilitated and independent living styles for seniors and non-seniors in need, and allows medical, adult, and child care facilities. It allows multifamily housing with increased density and lower living area per unit when dedicated to senior housing, similar to Summer Place in the center. It permits new commercial uses of size-limited service businesses by special permit not to exceed 2,000 square feet, focused on the senior age-in-place community, and restaurants no larger than 3,000 square feet, and it includes open space provisions. It restricts the height to 3 stories for the first 200 feet north of Route 40 and up to 5 stories on the remaining north side, allowing greater potential for needed increased housing units. This creates a tiered effect and allows for buffering and landscaping between the transitions. The height restriction for the 200 feet is compatible to the height of the south side RC zone, bringing a cohesive neighborhood character along Route 40. The CCCOD is an overlay that provides options. It does not change the underlying zoning. Everything that is currently permitted in the area under IA and RC in the COID overlay continue to be available to developers. The CCCOD provides incentives for senior housing and services and provides options for the new uses of limited commercial services and restaurants. It's important to remember the north side, after the first 200 feet, is privately owned and zoned IA. We are presenting to you a vision, an overlay vision, an opportunity to consider using 51 acres that maybe some developer someday might build our vision. There's no bulldozers at the ready. There's no builder or a developer waiting to construct anything in this 51 acres that we're aware of. Our vision is that in 2, 5, or maybe 10 years, if something were to be built, this might be something that would complement the area, allow for housing opportunities, a walkable community environment that is not being proposed anywhere else in town. Maybe with this vision, the 300-plus seniors on the waiting list who may never find housing in Chelmsford today may have a chance to stay in town. Maybe this vision could actually happen someday. Today, nothing is proposed to be built. Most likely, this will come back to this body in future years for revisions before anything is built. With this zoning proposal, the committee has provided a vision that creates a community environment for seniors, for people of all ages that require continuing care housing, people that may have head injuries, stroke victims, Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's. It could affect anyone at any age. It would be an opportunity to keep our family in town. You are hearing many housing zoning changes, but none are asking you to consider setting aside any areas in town for senior or continuing care housing. To create amenities for a community where folks with restricted mobility can easily move around, go to the doctor's appointments, get haircuts, go to a physical therapist without needing rides from friends and family. Our vision incorporates these services within the community outlay of the CCCOD. Considering we don't have much land left to develop, careful consideration should be made as to how we use what we have left, and considering our senior population and not missing opportunities to set land aside for them. This is a starting point, an overlay much like the Center Village zoning or the COID, an opportunity to do something the underlying zoning would not allow. It may never be used in this area, but it could be adapted and used elsewhere in town. The majority of the committee supported this overlay. The two options proposed are to vote yes for Article 23 and support a vision, trusting that the town will be sure the area is safe before anything is ever built, and to hope that someday in the future we could build this community for our residents that need continuing care and senior living. And to vote no leaves the area as IA and RC with the COID option. If the current owners on the land in the back decide to sell or the new developers decide to build, they'll build what is allowable in IA now or apply the COID as an option, and we'd never have an opportunity to do anything else with this land. The committee wants to thank you for considering our vision, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 23 with one abstention.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Board of Selectmen majority recommends approval of Article 23 with a 4-to-1 vote.
Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
Planning Board majority recommends the article.
Thank you.
Susan Gates, Precinct 7. I have two questions. And I'll just say what they are and then sit down and you can answer. One, can you tell me what the Board of Health said about this plan? And I know there's a doctor on the Board of Health, physician, and the Senior Center, did Debbie Sirianni have Council on Aging? And can you tell me, if you put the map up, where the asphalt plant is in relationship to this overlay?
I don't know if there is a map.
Yeah, you can go ahead and then I'll answer the where it is.
Okay. So most of the residents in this room are probably aware of the years of in the process that the town of Westwood went through to permit this asphalt plant. And we have heard that there are concerns that is this a safe area for residents or seniors living close to this asphalt plant? What we have to share with you, because we're not experts in asphalt plants, is that the plant will be new construction. It'll follow stricter guidelines, have state-of-the-art construction and tighter building codes. It's going to be monitored by Westford, and I would imagine Chelmsford, to be sure the residents are protected and safe moving forward. The good news is, during construction issues were found and corrected, which means it is being monitored and safety checks are in place. Whenever something new is proposed anywhere in the country, whether it be a nuclear power plant...
Okay, I'm really sorry. There were specific questions asked to you as to whether the doctor and the Board of Health had an opinion. Please just answer those questions.
Okay. The governing bodies for the asphalt plant are the EPA and the DEP and the...
No.
The Board of Health in West, the Board of Health in West.
I asked two questions.
Yes.
Where is it? Show me on the map, please. And then if you have a pointer or a laser pointer or something, where is it? And what did the Board of Health say? That's all I want to know. Yes, I'm sorry. That's our Board of Health. I meant the Chelmsford Board of Health.
No, that's not right. I'm sorry.
What?
That's not the Thomas Way.
Does nobody know where it is?
Nobody knows where it is.
And the proximity to anything buildable is about the same thing as the asphalt plant in South Chelmsford is to Chelmsford Woods.
Arroway, answer the question regarding the Board of Health. No, regarding the Board of Health's position on this.
The Board of Health's position states that they believe that the asphalt plant will have emissions that are over and above what the EPA say can come out, and that it will affect the people in the area.
Thank you. Mr. Fall.
Tom Fall, Precinct 5. Could you please start the clock, Mr. Moderator? I can't believe I'm arguing this way because I really do support the seniors in town, and I want to see them get every break they can get. But the second I heard that asphalt plant was in Westford, I live up in the Kensington Apartments. I live near the asphalt plant that's in Precinct 5. There are times when I've woken up on a weekend night with some strange odor coming in my window, and my eyes get watery. I get headaches. Now, I can't say it's from the asphalt plant, but I also can't think of any other place in my area that it would come from. So in my opinion only, it's from that asphalt plant. Therefore, when I hear you talking about making facilities for continuous care, people that got seniors that got problems, I have a big problem with that. And I urge everybody to vote no on this because of that. I understand we have to do something for our seniors, and I'm all for it. Just don't always put them next to an industrial zone. Can't you find any place in town you can put them where they don't have to worry about toxic fumes? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to get some facts. Oh, Ed Buckley, Precinct 6. I'd like to get some facts out of the way tonight. You didn't say how many feet in proximity this was, the elderly housing development in contrast to the
I'm sorry,
hot top plant.
Did you introduce yourself?
Yes, I did.
I'm sorry.
So you never answered the question of how many feet.
You did?
She never, well, I didn't hear her say that, but I got more questions. When does this plant open? When's it scheduled to open?
Actually, I'm sorry, I do know.
Yeah.
Again, Donald Van Dyne from the Planning Board. I did speak with the building commissioner, and I spoke to the Board of Health in Westford. The plant is going to be online next year. Before they close, as you know, asphalt goes offline in November. Before they close, they're going to put the plant, run the fluids through the plant, so that way they know that they're ready to open in the spring of next year. That's a certainty.
And the other question I have, we can only assume this will have the same level of hot top trucks coming out of the plant as we have on 110. And how many hours a day will it be open? That's another question I got, because many of these plants run 18 hours a day, maybe through the night, because they have night paving operations all around the state.
They're not permitted for night operations.
Okay, that answers that question. We heard the children earlier speak eloquently about bags and straws and the health concerns, but here we are talking about putting an elderly housing development next to an asphalt plant. And, you know, I think that's a little more concerning to me than bags. But another question I have, how many people here have had the pleasure to be behind a hot top truck from 110 and ride to the center and experience that smell? Pretty bad. It's pretty bad in my eyes. And another question, who here tonight will be the first person to cast a vote to put a elderly development next to a hot top plant? We'd be the first in the country to do that. We're better than that.
Okay, sir.
As a community.
Sir, your questions are argumentative. You're arguing.
Oh,
I already did. Thank you.
Okay, I figured you did. You know, so I'm against this article. I think it's a bad idea, and I'll be voting against it. And I think as members of town meeting and our constituents, we deserve better. So I hope everybody votes against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
For debate, John. Good evening. My name is Donald Van Dyne. As the only member of the Planning Board to vote against this article, I want to share my reasons why. The responsibility of a planning board is to create and propose zoning that reflects the values of the entire community. The purpose of zoning is to promote the health, the safety, morals, and general welfare of a community. The Planning Board's article to create targeted senior-specific zoning to steer seniors to live next door to an asphalt plant is egregious and poor planning. In fact, the town of Chelmsford may be the only municipality in the United States that has considered rezoning land abutting a permitted asphalt plant to specifically target senior citizen housing. Article 23 blatantly conflicts with the definition of zoning and does not reflect who we are in Chelmsford. I was also moved by the Chelmsford Board of Health letter to the Planning Board dated October 8th, 2019. It clearly stating that the Board of Health is in opposition to Article 23. Paraphrasing the letter, initially we, the Board of Health, are concerned with the numerous complaints we regularly receive from residents regarding Chelmsford asphalt plant along Route 110. Neither we or any other department in Chelmsford has authority to remedy acute and chronic issues. We can only refer to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, which has not acted as timely as we would like. Second, we are concerned at-risk population with special health concerns and limited ability to choose or remedy the living situation. Seniors frequently have illnesses such as respiratory problems that would be adversely affected by the conditions described in the complaints we have received. Please reconsider encouraging the placement of an at-risk population with limited mobility and close proximity to an industry for which we regularly get complaints, but have no authority to intervene. In closing, on Monday evening, this body acknowledged town meeting members that have served our community for 30 years. In Chelmsford, we respect commitment and longevity. Tonight, this body speaks for all Chelmsford senior residents that want to age in place. To date, I have not met one senior citizen that thinks living next door to an asphalt plant is a good idea. I've asked my mother, my mother-in-law, members of my church, and other senior members of our community, and resoundingly, everyone has said no to Article 23. Now I ask each of you, would you push your mother to live next door to an asphalt plant? Your vote tonight matters. A no vote will send a clear message to all seniors, which is quickly approaching 30% of our population and may include your mother, that we are listening, we care, and we love you. Please vote no on Article 23.
Thank you.
And now for the contrary opinion. You can start the clock. Mike Raisbeck, Precinct 1 and Planning Board. I'll just cut right to the chase. Any valid argument against this based on air quality has to be founded on one of two things. Either that the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection regulations are inadequate, or that the DEP enforcement would be inadequate. Now, that's possible. On the other hand, nobody has presented any evidence that that is or would be the case. And in fact, we know the DEP is quite active in many respects, including, by the way, at least one case of fining Newport already for a matter not related to air quality. I am not prepared to make any such assumptions. Nobody in this room, as far as I know, is capable of making the detailed judgments having to do with what is and isn't safe emission from a plant like this. And as much as I respect our Board of Health, and by the way, I have been to every single Board of Health meeting for most of a year, including the one at which this matter was discussed, no evidence or compelling argument was presented there either. There's a lot of reaction based on gut feel, and certainly nobody likes an asphalt plant next door. Unfortunately, we have very little control over this one because it's not in our town. Absent some good, solid evidence that the DEP and the Commonwealth will not control the emissions from this plant, which, by the way, will be up to the most modern of standards, unlike the thing we have down on 110. I think all of us should go with what the DEP offers to us, and we should not base the decision on this article on the existence or not of an asphalt plant in Westford.
Thank you. I just have a question. Of the people who are queued up, how many more are in favor of this article? Okay, then we'll go.
I have
Keep
a
going.
question.
Oh, go ahead.
Elaine McDonald, Precinct 1. Mr. Van Dyne was the dissenting vote on the planning board, and he explained his reason. Could I poll the other dissenting votes from the other boards for their dissenting reason and why?
I thought the Finance Committee was unanimous in favor. Well, one? Okay.
We cannot hear you.
Why don't you go to the microphone?
I'm sorry. I abstained from voting on this article because I was the person that voted against the previous article, and I thought they were co-joined, so I felt that I would abstain, and that's why I abstained.
Okay, so it was a unanimous vote.
Was the...
No.
No.
An abstention does not count
there
as
was
a
another
negative
board.
vote.
Board of Selectmen.
Right. The Select Board?
Yes, so I was the against vote. And my thought behind it was when the asphalt plant was proposed in Westford, we came out pretty strong as a town and said we were in fear of the air quality that was going to be coming out of there. And to me, it just seemed like a total reversal of an argument. As a group of residents, we argued extensively that we were very worried about the air quality, and now, for some reason, we're arguing the opposite of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Really?
Alvin Draymond, Precinct 5, please start the clock.
Thank you.
I'll try to remember each time to say that. It is quite possible that this asphalt plant will have zero emissions. I doubt it, but I will even grant that as a possibility. But they will be loading up hundreds of trucks, and those trucks will be driving right along Route 40, many of them going to Route 3 because, well, that's probably the main thoroughfare that they'd be going on, right past all this living. Those trucks will be emitting vapors. There is no way you can avoid vapors coming off of hot asphalt. It just, the physics of it. I know that, this is basically a thick oil. It's going to be emitting. Oil vapors are not healthy. The plant could be perfect, but the trucks will be bad emitters, and they'll just be going right back and forth across that area. So I think there is a major health risk. And I don't think those trucks were in the EPA study. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily Antle, Precinct 2, Select Board, Route 40 Study Committee. So I was poking around, and we have low-income housing on 110 next to an existing asphalt plant where there are also no sidewalks. So when this body talks about Chelmsford's values, we put an at-risk population who is demonstrably at risk because they receive funding. They are allowed to purchase houses or apartments at 60% of the cost, which is still $1,400 for a two-bedroom house or an apartment. It's still 700 square feet. It's very small, very cramped. So we put poor people next to one, and then we didn't give them sidewalks so that they could walk into town. That is limited mobility people being restricted next to an asphalt plant. You just voted to put multiple duplexes in the residential zone right next to that asphalt plant. When you didn't bring the IA to the street and you left it residential, you voted to put a pile of duplexes in there because that is what a developer is going to do. They're going to look at that and say, okay, well, residential, I want to make my money back. What's going to make my duplexes? And they're going to cram them in there. So you have just put a whole bunch of people next to that asphalt plant. So those are major inconsistencies here. And not only did you put poor people next to an existing asphalt plant that is not up to modern standards, that is pre-existing and grandfathered in, but you did it overwhelming. It was 137 to 9. So if those are the values that Chelmsford had a few years ago, I am surprised to hear that there are different values now, especially when you just put duplexes right in next to them. So I'm hearing some inconsistencies here. And I am wondering at what point this body, which also frequently expounds upon regulations and regulatory burdens, is now complaining that there aren't enough regulations around a plant. I mean, again, consistency is important. Do you like regulations or not? There are so many inconsistencies, and I'm really confused as to what the town of Chelmsford wants right now, because I have just heard many conflicting things all at once, and this body has voted in multiple ways all at once that appear to be in conflict with each other. So we had kind of a mess to start with, and we still have kind of a mess, and I don't really know where to go from here, so I don't have a direction. So that was all I had to say, and I just wanted to remind you all of how you voted just a few years ago. You put poor people with limited mobility, with no sidewalks, next to an asphalt plant that is less regulated.
Okay, Ms. Antle, that really is not the issue before us today, though. No, it's not. Okay? We're talking about seniors, we're not talking about 110. Go ahead.
Chris LaValle, Precinct 4. For years now, we've been fighting, Chelmsford residents and Westwood residents have been fighting against this asphalt plant. Just a quick Google search, I was able to find 2 instances where the company has already been fined for non-compliance. In August 2017 for non-compliance, and again in July 2019, they were fined again for failing to meet the testing standards for groundwater. So just because we have approved and maybe made mistakes in the past doesn't mean we should do it again. And to incentivize and to have people develop a senior facility next to this plant, I think is irresponsible. It's one thing for housing units to be built there. People can choose to live there or not. It's their own choice. But if we're going to have a housing development in town, why on earth would we put it there? Let's find another place in town to put it. If we're going to incentivize the senior development, let's find a really good location in town. I'm all for senior development. I really want that type of development in town, but this is not the location for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Bowman, 3 Julio Street, Precinct 4. Could you start the clock, please? Thank you very much. There's only one board in town that has the jurisdiction concerning health issues in this town. That is the Board of Health. The Board of Health evaluated these issues and determined that it presents a serious health issue for putting senior citizens next to an asphalt plant. We should listen to them. No other board has that particular jurisdiction or responsibility. Another thing is there are 4 items listed as far as basic requirements and objectives. These 4 things were lifted from the BAOD overlay, and I can tell you our experience in Precinct 4 on Billerica Road, Mill Road, and Turnpike Road is that these items do not apply to projects that come before the planning board. So beware. Let's see. Another thing is that for seniors defined as 55 years of age or over, apparently don't need much space because what is proposed here is smaller room sizes than in what is presently in the CEIOD. So basically, this is a pack 'em and stack 'em overlay district for senior citizens, which is not right. The other thing is what is proposed here is that development in this area be 5 stories high or up to 60 feet. So the majority of what's allowed in IA districts per se is 4 stories across town. There is a section along Billerica Road from Alpha Road basically to the Route 3 interchange for 6 stories. That's the only place. Every place else is 4 stories. That should not change. And the other thing is a prior speaker had said that putting seniors next to an asphalt plant is egregious, and I concur with him. I had one more thought. It just has to come back.
Hopefully quickly.
Yes, I'm looking at my notes. I'll be right with you. Okay, the other thing is that with an asphalt plant that does have emissions, plant emissions, we know they have plant emissions because they monitor those emissions. There is no guarantee that those systems that are supposed to be in place to reduce the output from the point of emission to meet specific air quality standards are going to be met. They're going to fail. We know they're going to fail. So therefore, we should have a safety margin built in. That safety margin means putting people away from these types of plants in order to increase health and safety to those people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe Reddy, Precinct 1. I'd like to move the question.
Been a motion to move the question. An affirmative vote would be to allow us to vote on Article 23. So please vote.
This is the third time tonight on 3 articles that we've had to move the question motion. I think that's an indication that although everyone is entitled to have their opinion at the microphone, that it does tend to get a little redundant. In any case, moving the question is not the same as moving the voting on the article itself. That this is quickly going to come to a vote. I suspect that we are going to put off until next Monday night the remaining articles.
The motion passes 120 in favor, 13 opposed, and 2 abstentions. Now we will be voting on Article 23, which would amend the zoning bylaws, adopting a new continuing care community overlay district for the indicated areas. This requires a 2/3 vote.
Especially that it requires a 2/3 vote, it would be hard to imagine it passing, and so it shall be. Now the question is, does the town meeting have the interest in continuing with the remaining zoning articles, some of which look like it could be complicated, and so that just on the basis of the complexity, even if everyone's in favor, I suspect we'll be seeing you all again on Monday night.
The article fails, 20 in favor, 109 opposed, 6 abstentions.
Mr. Moderator, Colleen Stansfield, Precinct 1. Can I make a motion to suspend the rules and we can give 1 minute for presentations and 1 minute for comment and try and finish up tonight?
Well, there's a motion. What can I say?
Come on.
Why don't we do it by hand?
5?
I just think.
Which one's left?
I just think it's a motion to allow only 1 minute for presentation, 1 minute for debate, so that we can wrap up tonight. And we've only got 11 minutes and 5 articles. So, yes. Well, we have.
I will withdraw my motion.
So now we have a motion to adjourn till Monday morning, the 28th. Monday evening. Monday evening. Monday evening at 7:30 p.m. And we have a second. All in favor? All opposed? See you Monday morning. Afternoon.
And so with a certain amount of frivolity, the second session of our autumn town meeting comes to an end. We got through only 3 articles tonight. All 3 of them were obviously important to town meeting members. The fact that the votes ended up being so lopsided suggests that maybe these were outcomes that might have been anticipated, and had they been anticipated earlier, we'd have been done by tonight. But that's not the way our democracy works, and so we'll see you again on Monday night. The remaining articles are a series of zoning bylaw amendments having to do with open space zoning bylaws, historical preservation, sign advisory committee, and those are probably technical enough in nature that even in an expedited way, we wouldn't have gotten through to them. In any case, we will be back here on Monday night. You hope you'll join us. We want to thank the staff and volunteers, as always, of Chelmsford Telemedia, who get here early and stay here late every time one of these meetings takes place. We appreciate your help, folks. So until next Monday night, I'm Kelly Beatty signing off. Good night.